certainly worthwhile. So you all live what you write. You live it.
Yes. That's how we got started doing this, is we started doing it for ourselves, and we said, hey, this is great, and we want to tell folks about it, and that's how we got started doing this 16 years ago.
And are you ever tempted to write anything that you ought not because of a potential sponsor for an advertisement for your magazine?
We have lost full-page advertisements because I refuse to write up products. We will not accept advertising from products that we know are not as advertised. We just don't do that.
Well, that's called integrity, and I think you've got a lot of it. Richard, thank you for being here tonight. The program is over. We're out of time.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, Art. I enjoyed it immensely.
You're very welcome, my friend. Good night. That's Richard Perez from Home Power Magazine. Tomorrow night, Dr. Stephen Greer, along with ABC. This is going to be quite a night. Quite a night indeed. Richard Greer has been threatened. Tomorrow night, you'll get to hear it from the high deserts. Good night.
Riders on the storm. Riders on the storm.
News Talk 1110, WBT.
Good morning. This is Ray Vincent of American Equity Mortgage. If you're hearing our message at this time, it's probably because you're at work, driving around, or can't sleep. If you can't sleep, I hope it's not because of money problems, but if it is a money problem, American Equity Mortgage can help. You're not alone. The average household has a credit card debt of $6,000 or more and paying a fortune in interest. You see, if you're a homeowner, you can use the equity in your home to consolidate all your bills and have only one payment. Think about that, just one new low monthly payment. Your equity can be used to pay off your auto loans, credit cards, and get a new low fixed rate on your mortgage. You will be saving hundreds of dollars each month. American Equity Mortgage specializes in homeowners with less than perfect credit. We have helped thousands of people just like you get back on track. You can call us and a loan specialist will call you first thing in the morning. That's American Equity Mortgage. Call now, 556-1800. That's 704-556-1800.
This year, you are going to quit smoking. Whether you've said it for years or you're trying for the very first time, there's a revolutionary new system that's guaranteed to help you succeed or your money back. SmokeRx has a 95% success rate, so we guarantee that you'll be completely smoke-free and cravings-free in as little as 1 week. Unlike gums or patches, SmokeRx is a complete system that includes natural herbs to curb your cravings safely without nicotine. Best of all, SmokeRx starts to work immediately. Come on, aren't you willing to give yourself 1 week to quit? We're so confident that SmokeRx will work for you that we're giving away a free month supply with all of today's orders. Whether you're doing it for yourself or for the ones you love, SmokeRx is a fast, guaranteed answer. In as little as 1 week, you'll kick the habit for good or your money back. Call now to receive a free month supply with your order.
To order risk-free, call 1-800-799-3898. That's 1-800-799-3898. Call 1-800-799-3898 now.
This is WBT Charlotte and 99.3 WBT FM. News Talk 1110 WBT Charlotte's news, weather, and traffic station.
CBS News, I'm Bill Vitka. Still a flood maker. What was Hurricane Charlie drenching Maryland right now and much of the East Coast. Charlie made first landfall in Florida with 145-mile-an-hour winds. Jeff Evans says finally the storm is losing its fight.
The maximum sustained winds in Charlie have decreased to about 40 miles per hour. This is primarily over the water east of the center, so we dropped much of the warnings along the East Coast.
Tamer now, but when Charlie was a hurricane, it slammed Florida, killing at least 13 people, most of them in Punta Gorda, where the scale of the damage is huge. CBS News correspondent Aline Sir Ghani, visited a trailer park where there was some stage of destruction just about everywhere.
One lady, Imogene Snelling, who had saved up all of her retirement money to buy this mobile home, had lived in it for more than a decade, is now homeless. She was simply overwhelmed with grief. as her children tried to go through the rubble to salvage some of the family pictures.
3 cities, Punta Gorda, Port Charlotte, and Fort Myers, have no running water. More than 1 million people have no power. An estimated 50,000 people are living in shelters. But in some parts of the state, the damage was less severe.
Actually, there's more here than I thought that we'd have. Hard to see much work for all your life go down the drain like this.
Where am I going to be tomorrow?
Governor Jeb Bush says there is billions of dollars in damage, but he says relief will be speedy.
I'm absolutely convinced that within a shorter period of time than what we experienced with Hurricane Andrew, people's hopes are going to be lifted.
His brother, President Bush, said he would visit the politically vital state on Sunday. Researchers at Johns Hopkins say they've designed a blood test to detect ovarian cancer. It identifies 3 proteins found in common in the blood of women with the disease. Their preliminary studies offer the hope that the new test can pick out the signature of the disease sooner to make possible earlier treatment to fight the deadly cancer, known for its ability to remain undetected and spread quickly. Family and friends held a memorial for a missing Utah woman whom police believe was murdered by her husband. Ben Winslow of CBS radio affiliate KSL.
In music, prayer, and eulogy, family and friends remembered Lori Hacking as a bright young woman with a spitfire personality. Hundreds turned out for the memorial service, including Salt Lake City Police Detective Dwayne Baird, who met with the family.
It's difficult for them, as you can well imagine.
Mark Hacking's family also attended the service.
They expressed appreciation for each other.
Police continue to search the Salt Lake Valley landfills for Lori Hacking's body. Ben Winslow for CBS News, Orem, Utah.
Truce talks between Iraq's interim government and a rebel clerics militia have collapsed. Prime Minister Ayad Alawi said he would send Iraqi troops to Najaf to battle Muqtada al-Sadr's rebels. U.S. commanders are getting new battle plans ready to break the clerics' grip on Najaf. The deployment of the Iraqi army is the first since sovereignty was restored on June 28th. This is CBS News.
Oh, honey, I was so worried. I know, it's okay. The boat's a little beat up, but we're okay. Thanks to the Coast Guard.
I am the port in the storm.
The strike is contained.
Roger that.
I am the line in the sand.
Oh, I got you. Hang on. Okay, take us up.
I am the rescuer in the dark.
Looks like we've got about 80 kilos here, Captain.
That's 80 kilos off the street. I am the enforcer of the seas.
I'm in container 38. Everything is secure.
Good work, Garcia.
I am the defender of the homeland. In the United States Coast Guard, you are the first line of defense against threats to our American way of life. To become one of us, call toll-free 1-877 now USCG or visit gocoastguard.com.
We are the shield of freedom. We are the United States Coast Guard.
The United States Coast Guard and Coast Guard Reserve, the shield of freedom.
Sponsored by the U.S. Coast Guard in cooperation with the North Carolina Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Michael Phelps got closer to his dream, the teenage American claiming his first gold medal, swimming to a world record, 4 minutes, 8 seconds and change in a 400-meter individual medley. He was fighting back tears as the medal was placed around his neck. Phelps hoping to bring home 8 gold medals from Athens. American teammate Eric Bent finished second for the silver, a twofold celebration that overshadowed a mediocre day overall for the United States. China leading the medals race with 4 gold, 2 apiece in shooting and diving. When the Army ordered up a new armored vehicle, it may have failed to take into account how to get it to the battlefield. The Stryker vehicle weighs so much, the C-130 cargo plane may not be able to take it far. In fact, it may not be able to leave the runway. The investigative arm of Congress, the GAO, said the C-130 with a 38,000-pound Stryker on board might not be able to take off at all from high elevations like Afghanistan during much of the summer. The Stryker, the Army's first new combat vehicle in 2 decades, was considered a high-profile effort to transform the Army. CBS News, I'm Bill Fitka.
Somewhere out there's a place where the gardens are so lush, they give you a taste of what it must have been like in Eden. It's a place where once upon a time, gold ore was so plentiful, it was used to pave the streets. Where lush green fairways snake their way over and around ancient sandhills and through the towering pines. Where artistic wonders are fashioned out of clay every day. And where at night, some of the world's largest lakes mirror the unfiltered light of an infinite sea of stars. And the best part of this somewhere out there is that it's right here. in the heartland of the state you call home. When you live in North Carolina, the rich, fertile heartland is just a small part of your inheritance. Isn't it time you claimed it? Call 1-800-VISIT-NC or go to visitnc.com and discover the state you're in.
Sponsored by the North Carolina Division of Travel and Tourism and the North Carolina Association of Broadcasters in cooperation with this station.
Now the News Talk 1110 WBT exclusive AccuWeather forecast. Partly to mostly cloudy overnight. A spotty shower, low 63. Sunday patchy fog early, and then clouds will break for some sun. There could be a shower, high 82. Partly cloudy Sunday night, a low 64. The outlook for Monday, a nice day. A mixture of clouds and sunshine with a high temperature of 84 degrees. We're Charlotte's most accurate and dependable forecast. I'm AccuWeather's Dave Bowers on News Talk 1110 WBT.
From the high desert in the great American Southwest, I bid you all good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be in the globe's 25 prolific time zones, every one of them covered by this program, one way or the other, which is Coast to Coast AM Weekend Edition. I'm Art Bell. It's my honor to be here with you this night, the eve of the first private shot into space. And if I wasn't here, I can assure you, I can absolutely assure you I'd be there. They call it Spaceship One. It's a private rocket to space. It's going to be attached, actually, to the underside of its light night carrier airplane during takeoff from Mojave Airport at about 6:30 in the morning. MSNBC.com will provide live streaming video coverage if you're up at that hour. And it looks like all the networks finally have headed down there. CNN headed down there. And then all the other networks said, I guess we better get down there, so they're on their way. At an altitude of about 50,000 feet, the rocket plane will separate from the white night, light up the engines, and shoot up to 100 kilometers, 62 miles, the internationally recognized boundary of outer space. It will be the first private craft to leave Earth. The first privately of Burt Rutan's effort to leave Earth, and it's just hours away now. I got a very interesting email from somebody a little while ago about Burt Rutan. And, of course, if I wasn't here, I'd be there. I guarantee you that. I'd be there. It's only about 4 hours away, plus, prep time and so forth. So I just would not make it. Anyway, the email on Rutan stuff, he says, if it works, and it has to this point, why it's so far ahead of NASA, there's no comparison. Instead of 800 people in a control center size of a small city, Burt Rutan has 4 or 5 guys in a truck. Think about it. Economy of scale. They will leave the ground at about 6:30, and whatever time it takes to get to altitude, about 50,000 feet. And then she takes off. Godspeed is what I would say. What an effort. What an incredible effort. And seeing the private sector going into space is heartwarming. Very, very heartwarming. And if it does not give you the opportunity, surely it may give your children the opportunity to go to space. Anyway, to me, that's the big news. There is other news to discuss. Let's see. South Korean held in Iraq pleads for life. The Arab satellite television network Al Jazeera aired a videotape Sunday purportedly from Al-Qaeda-linked militant showing a South Korean hostage begging for his life and pleading with his government to withdraw troops from Iraq. South Korea says not a chance. The Al-Qaeda group responsible for beheading an American engineer said sympathizers, listen to this now, sympathizers in the Saudi security force provided police uniforms and cars used during the victim's kidnapping. That's according to an Islamic extremist website on Sunday. So you just don't know what to think about Saudis, do you? I've always had some great suspicion they weren't quite friends they seem to be when the diplomatic handshakes occur. And that, in fact, they were responsible behind 9/11 financially, very deeply indeed. So, kind of a schizophrenic kind of response from the Saudis. They take our money for oil. Iraq's interim prime minister, announced a restructuring of the country's security forces Sunday, regrouping all Iraqi troops under one central command whose chief duty is tackling insurgents plaguing the country. The prime minister also said his government was considering imposing martial law in Iraq's troubled spots to help police and paramilitaries bring order. The chairman of the September 11 Commission said Sunday that Al-Qaeda had much more interaction with Iran and Pakistan than it ever did with Iraq, underscoring a controversy over the Bush administration's insistence that there was collaboration between the terrorist organization and Saddam Hussein. Thomas Keane made the comment, even as he and his other commissioners tried to steer clear of the debate over one of the administration's primary justifications for invading Iraq. Well, so they're saying, it just didn't happen. That two other countries, Iran and Pakistan, both had much more to do with those who perpetrated the September 11th massacre than did Saddam Hussein. Well, then there goes that as a reason to start the war, and so we don't have that anymore. And well, but we've got the weapons of mass destruction, right? When you can't be there, the VersaCorder tape recorder sure can. $109.95 with a special offer right now. Free telephone patch cord at $10 value with free shipping. Seacrane's VersaCorder is the tape recorder designed for people who listen to radio often enough to know when they're going to miss their favorite show. It records about anything from radio to telephone conversations, records at regular and quarter speed, records up to 4 hours on one side of a regular 120-minute cassette tape. You can set it to record Coast to Coast AM while you're asleep or away, record meetings and interviews, plug it in, or run it on batteries. Seacrane's VersaCorder works with any radio that has a headphone jack. Mention Coast to Coast AM when you call, and Seacrane will include a telephone patch cord, a $10 value, free. Give them a call Monday at 1-800-522-8863. That number again to order your VersaCorder or for a free Seacrane Company catalog, 800-522-8863. And on the web at ccradio.com, the Seacrane Company discovers something new today.
Millions of people who've never even set foot in a casino take a dangerous gamble every day, living without health insurance. You just can't afford not to have it. But affordable health insurance can be hard to find, particularly if you're a hard-working entrepreneur or if you're working for a company that doesn't offer benefits. Fortunately, the Midwest National Life Insurance Company of Tennessee has a solution with their dependable, affordable health insurance plans. Call today at 1-800-413-9400. More than likely, they have a plan that fits your individual needs perfectly at a price you can afford. After all, if you can't pay the premium, all the insurance in the world is useless. So call 1-800-413-9400. Don't gamble. Go to Midwest. Their home office is located in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. That toll-free number again is 1-800-413-9400. This coverage is not available in all states. Call today, 1-800-413-9400.
Coming up at the top of the hour is an interview I cherished, that with Dean Radin. Dean Radin is involved, or was involved, in the Princeton project, the Consciousness Project. This incredibly important, incredibly interesting concept that there is a universal consciousness, and that actually, like a seismograph, Princeton was able to distribute what they called their eggs, really computers, scattered geographically about the world, that report back to the Princeton computer. And then when large events occur, as an earthquake would register on a seismic scale, why the needles take off, in fact, ahead of the actual event and predict events. Now, that would seem to indicate the ability to read the power of mass, or at least some aspect of mass consciousness. And so Dean Radin is involved in that, was involved in that project, and in many more, and has written a brand new book called The Conscious Universe. And we will talk to him about that tonight. Fascinating man. Just reviewing last night, in case you didn't hear it, I read a fascinating story from The Guardian about the chairman of Shell Oil, who said, well, actually the headline is Oil Chief, my fear is for planet. Shell boss's confession shocks industry. Well, I bet it did. He's saying unless we do something pretty soon, well, he's simply very worried for the planet. Now, that is not something you would expect an oil company exec to say. And then you've got this from the Manchester News. Insurers, that would be insurance companies, warn of climate change threat. The implications of climate change must be addressed now if insurers are to continue offering widely available and affordable cover, an insurance trade body warned today. The Association of British Insurers said climate change was not an issue that would have an impact in the future, but was something that was already affecting insurance. Forget about the future. It's affecting insurance now, with household claims relating to storm and flood damage doubling in the 5 years to 2003 to £6 billion. It warned that insurers face the prospect of these claims further tripling by 2050 if nobody does anything. By the way, you remember the danger of the dirty bomb? You remember I talked to you a little bit about dirty bomb maybe having much more of a psychological effect than it ever would a real effect in terms of killing people. Well, true. Here it is. The dirty bomb, allegedly planned by terrorist suspect Jose Padilla, would have been a dud. Not the radiological threat portrayed last week by federal authorities. As a June 1st news conference, or at it, the Justice Department said the alleged Al-Qaeda associate hoped to attack Americans by detonating uranium wrapped with explosives in order to spread radioactivity. But uranium's extremely low radioactivity is harmless compared with high radiation materials such as cesium and cobalt isotopes, which are used in medicine and industry that experts see as potential dirty bomb fuel. So the one he was thinking of detonating just would not have done very much at all. We're about to do open lines coming up in just a moment, but every now and then I get an email or communication that I find really intriguing, and I don't necessarily understand it, but I'm sure one of you will. Randall writes, "Hey Art, I worked for a contractor for the National Science Foundation on their Antarctica programs. One project's starting construction down there now is called Ice Cube." That's a good name. It is a very large neutrino detector being constructed in the glacial ice near the South Pole station. It is over a kilometer square and a kilometer deep, with a network of detectors embedded in the ice. Now, some of you knowing more about this than myself might be able to explain to me what this is potentially all about. Just kind of curious. West of the Rockies, let's do it. You're on the air. Hello.
Hi, Art.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Who is this?
My name is Daniel, otherwise known as Time Traveler 2012.
Oh, you're a time traveler.
Yes, but not necessarily from 2012. If you want to know something about the future, though, I can give you something about 2020.
Uh-huh. Well, okay, let's back up a little bit. From what date, roughly, did you travel?
Actually, I've been all over the place, because I'm not really human.
All right.
I'm an angel.
All righty. Let's back up then, nevertheless, and you're an angel. You're an angel. So there was no initial date that you began this journey, because you've essentially always been?
No, what happened was I was awakened in October 2099. October of 1999, I'm sorry.
Awakened in October of 1999?
As an angel, and before that I was just a regular human.
Ah, so you suddenly discovered yourself you were an angel. How did you discover you were an angel?
Well, when God came to me, October 1999, and told me exactly who I was, which is the return of Old Testament Daniel, and also an incarnate angel of God.
Oh. So, well, you all right. Then you must have much to tell us about our future. I'm listening. 2012 or otherwise, what's coming?
Well, one vision I can tell you about is one where I was transported into the future to the year 2092. And what I learned at that time is that society had long since collapsed, and then the cities were abandoned at that time. So I asked, when I was transported there, I asked one of the people there who I met, I asked him, what caused all this? Like, what did this?
Right.
So he told me it was called Starburst 2020. And that means 72 years after Starburst was their civilization. So I asked him, what does Starburst mean?
Right.
He told me it's nuclear detonations over a handful of cities in 2020.
Well, I suppose it's inevitable, but it was only a partial exchange. We didn't totally annihilate ourselves, right?
No, the Earth is not destined to die like that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that's a good peek into the future, I guess. How does it feel to be an angel?
It feels great, except that no one believes you if you try telling them.
Yeah, that would be a problem. But, I mean, you know it to be true.
Oh, of course, yes.
Well, so, I mean, what's it like being an angel? I mean, just from your own perspective, I am asking.
Yeah, well, it's lonely because you cannot really have friends unless they're angels themselves.
Oh.
Because you have to sort of get along with the right kind of people at that time.
So have you kind of learned to not tell people you're an angel because of the, I don't know, difficulty it engenders as conversation goes on?
Well, I'll tell you, Art, I hate it. I hate telling people about it, and the only reason I have to tell people about it is because I have a book that I've written, and it's supposed to get out to as many people as possible.
Book promotion. So you've written a book. Is it published yet?
Yes, it's been self-published for about 1.5 years now.
And what's it called?
It's called Final Book of Daniel.
All right. Well, I see.
It can be reached at...
well, no, I can't let you do that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I understand you really would like to, Daniel, but I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Anyway, people can probably research it using Google or whatever now that that they have the name and proceed from there, all right?
That's perfect.
Okay, take care, Daniel, and fly safely. Well, all right, wildcard line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello? Hello. Art?
Yes?
Oh, good. Okay. This is Russ from Long Island, New York.
Hey, Russ.
Hi. My girlfriend called me an angel last night.
Did she?
Yeah, she did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have a story. It's called the...
I wonder if that's how it happened to Daniel. A quick moment of
I called once before and I told you I saw a woman disappear in an elevator. I was that guy who told you that?
Yes.
So, I mean, I don't believe she was an angel. I believe she was a time traveler. Just real quick, my sister and I were standing by the door, waiting for the elevator door to open up, and this lady walks up, and for some reason my sister and I did not move when the door opened, and she walked in. She had a lab coat on. She was about 165 pounds, black hair, very plain face. She walked right in the elevator. The elevator door started to close, and then I snapped out of it, and I said, "Hey, Lynn, hurry up, hit the button." And then I hit the button because I was right there. The door did not even close, Art. It opens back up. We walked in, no lady. But that's not what I called you about. So, I mean, anything is possible. And there's a lot going on out there that you have no clue. I mean, if this woman disappeared right in front of me, and it happened twice. I called once before and I told you this, but it happened in another hospital also. But the reason I called you tonight was the title of this story, and it's a true story. It's called The 18-Wheeler Miracle. And it goes out to all you truckers out there. And I thank God that you guys know what you're doing on the road because it saved my life. The year was 1973. This happened 31 years ago, so the trucker that was out there at the time, I don't know if he's retired or not, but this is what happened. I'm on I-95. I just passed over the borderline of North Carolina, and I have I had a Harley Davidson chopper, fully chopped, long front end. There were only two people on the road. There was a car on the right-hand side of the lane, the slow lane, and there was this old lady and guy in there. And as I passed their car, my mufflers would bounce off of it, and they just gave me this look, and they rolled up their window. And way in front of me was this 18-wheeler truck. Mm-hmm. So, and that was in the center lane. So I pulled up, I nailed it, and I just went wham right up to this truck. And I was remembering what my science teacher said in school. He said, if you go up close enough to a truck, you'll find out there's absolutely no air behind the back of it. There's no air disturbance. There's a void back there. So I figured I would try it out. So I got directly behind the truck, and sure enough, I was right up to the back of the truck, and there was absolutely no wind back there at all. It was nice and calm. I just heard the sound of the truck, the sound of my motor, and it's a good thing I knew enough about physics to not just pull, right out alongside, get back into the wind. Otherwise, the wind would have knocked me right down, because I was going around 65 miles an hour. So I slowly backed up from the truck and had all the air pressure get back on me, and then I moved up. Hot bike and stuff. So I gave it back, and just at that point, I heard like a shotgun sound go off, and I hear boom, and then I hear. I look to the back, and my rear wheel is locked, and I started to slow up.
You had what, a blowout?
No, I found out later on that my primary chain locked up because my oiler, the chain oiler, was not working, and the chain just froze, locking up my back wheel.
Wow.
So the bike started to skid straight, and I'm going, okay, well, maybe I could there's only another car on the road. I can just, keep it straight, and then I'll slow up and get off the bike. Didn't happen like that. As soon as I started to slow up a little bit, it started to go down. The back wheel started to go counterclockwise, and then the bike fell, hit the ground. I immediately jumped on top of the bike. As that's happening, it's counterclockwise underneath the truck.
Oh my God!
I'm looking.
All right, hold it right there. This in radio is what we call a cliffhanger. So there's a bike on its side. He's riding on top of it, and both of them are underneath a semi-truck. Does it get any worse? Well, he's here to tell us the story, and he did mention the word miracle, I believe. We'll get back to him in a moment from the high desert in the middle of the night, which is exactly where we do business. This is Coast to Coast AM. I'm Martel.
Charlotte and 99.3 WBT FM Chester. News Talk 1110 WBT. Charlotte's news, weather, and traffic station.
CNN Radio News Update. I'm Matt Cherry. Officials confirm Hurricane Charlie claimed at least 13 lives when it blazed through Florida, and that death toll is expected to go up. Meanwhile, Patricia Davis of Florida Power and Light says power restoration efforts are in full swing.
We have a well-rehearsed storm plan and a very well-trained workforce of some 10,000 men and women that are going to be working around the clock to rebuild and restore power until everyone is back in service.
Thousands are homeless in the Sunshine State. Charlie is now a tropical storm and is expected to reach southeastern New England Sunday before burning itself over Nova Scotia. U.S. officials say President Bush plans to bring home about 70,000 troops stationed in Europe and Asia. Fighting is expected to resume in Najaf, where peace talks with forces loyal to cleric Muqtada al-Sadr have broken down. Children of bombs over in northeastern India. Many children are feared to be among the dead. This is CNN Radio News.
Frank, take your feet off my desk.
Sure thing, Jug.
And stop calling me that.
You got it, Tessie. What's up?
You are fired.
Hey, everyone, it's the weekly Let's Fire Frank event.
This time it's for real, Frank.
Listen, Dor, for years you've been running newspaper ads trying to replace me, and it ain't going to happen.
Au contraire, thanks to CharlotteHealthWanted.com.
You've tried national and local job sites before.
Yes, but nobody drives employees to a website like CharlotteHealthWanted.com.
Oh, I have goosebumps.
I posted your job in less than 5 minutes. I had unlimited words to describe the position. I was able to peruse resumes any time of the day or night.
Wrong fired for the 127th time.
I started getting responses almost immediately and found the nicest, most capable local person to fill your position.
What?
So goodbye, Frank.
Well, you better get ready for lots of weeping and gnashing of teeth, because I'm very beloved.
Everyone, I fired Frank. This time for real.
You're all disloyal.
CharlotteHealthWanted.com. Long name, amazing results.
Now, all ads on CharlotteHealthWanted.com can be viewed instantly in English and in Spanish. Not just Help Wanted. CharlotteHealthWanted.com.
Fight Father Time with Cocoon GH. This advanced growth hormone spray delivers impressive results. Listen to what 51-year-old Gail Contacts experienced while on Cocoon GH.
My eyesight was failing. My skin was sagging. I was losing muscle tone, and my bones and joints were aching. I initially got started on a product called Ultimate HGH. I felt a little more energy for the first few weeks, but then I began to feel tired again. Then I heard an ad on Cocoon GH and gave a call. I learned that Ultimate HGH isn't even growth hormone. I started using Cocoon GH, and the first thing I noticed was my aches and pains went away. After another few weeks, my energy came up, as did my strength and endurance. I'm getting a better night's sleep and waking up feeling rested. My muscle tone and my eyesight both improved after 1 month. My sex drive got stronger, and much to my surprise, my menopausal symptoms went away and my period came back. I'm impressed beyond belief. Thanks, Cocoon Nutrition.
Satisfaction guaranteed. Call 888-988-3325. That's 888-988-3325.
This year, you're going to quit smoking. Whether you've said it for years or you're trying for the first time, there's a revolutionary new system that's guaranteed to help you succeed or your money back. The smoking solution components have already helped thousands of ex-smokers kick the habit permanently. We guarantee you'll be completely smoke-free and cravings-free in as little as 7 days or your money back. Unlike gums or patches, the smoking solution is a complete system that includes natural herbs to curb your cravings safely without nicotine. We also include the slimming solution to fight weight gain, powerful antioxidants to help heal your lungs and body, and much, much more. Best of all, the smoking solution system works fast. In as little as 1 week, we can help you kick the habit once and for all. Come on, aren't you willing to give yourself 1 week to quit? Whether you're doing it for yourself or for the ones you love, the smoking solution system is the fast, guaranteed answer. In as little as 1 week, you'll kick the habit for good or your money back.
To order is free. Call 800-816-2129. That's 800-816-2129. Call 800-816-2129 now or go to radiodeals.com.
Good morning. This is Ray Vinson of American Equity Mortgage. If you're hearing our message at this time, it's probably because you're at work, driving around, or can't sleep. If you can't sleep, I hope it's not because of money problems, but if it is a money problem, American Equity Mortgage can help. You're not alone. The average household has a credit card debt of $6,000 or more and paying a fortune in interest. You see, if you're a homeowner, you can use the equity in your home to consolidate all your bills. One payment. Think about that. Just one new low monthly payment. Your equity can be used to pay off your auto loans, credit cards, and get a new low fixed rate on your mortgage. You will be saving hundreds of dollars each month. American Equity Mortgage specializes in homeowners with less than perfect credit. We have helped thousands of people just like you get back on track. You can call our office right now, and a loan specialist will call you first thing in the morning. That's American Equity Mortgage. Call now.
556-1800. That's 704-556-1800.
News Talk 1110 WBT.
With Art Bell. Call the Wildcard line at area code 775-727-1295. The first-time caller line is area code 775-727-1222. To talk with Art Bell from east of the Rockies, call toll-free at 800-825-5033. From west of the Rockies, call 800-618-8255. International callers may recharge by calling your in-country Sprint access number, pressing option 5, and dialing toll-free 800-893-0903. From coast to coast and worldwide on the Internet, this is Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell.
The man did say the word miracle, didn't he? And if he got out of that, it surely was one. We'll find out in a moment.
Are you or a loved one making too many trips to the bathroom? Well, listen closely because you're definitely not alone. Over 30 million men suffer from an enlarged prostate. That's why, if you do make frequent trips to the bathroom, have urgency, hesitancy, or diminished sex drive, then Super Prostate Formula is for you. It was designed by nationally recognized physician Dr. Michael Zaplisky. The results with his patients have been amazing. Take it from me. Reclaim control now and join the legions of listeners who have the incredible results because it really does work. When you order 2 bottles of Super Prostate Formula, you'll get 2 bottles of his Super Libido Formula to reduce inflammation and further support the health of your prostate. Plus, his groundbreaking book, The Complete Guide to Prostate Health, and his newsletter, a total $100 value free as your gift. Guaranteed to work, or you get your money back. If you're not completely satisfied, return it for a full refund and keep the book and the newsletter free as your gift. Not available in any store. So call now, 1-800-603-7277. That's 1-800-603-7277. 1-800-603-7277.
Ever wonder who coined the phrase, "We eliminate the middleman"? Well, one thing's pretty certain. It wasn't the middleman. And how did they eliminate him? Something fishy there. But I digress. Geico pioneered direct-to-consumer car insurance over 65 years ago, and they've been saving smart drivers money ever since. Give them a call, and you might ask them, what did they do with the middleman?
Geico's customer satisfaction stands at 97%. How would you rate your car insurance company? Geico. 1-800-947-AUTO. 15 minutes could save you 15%.
Hi, Tom Bodette. As if bugging us about our weight wasn't bad enough, now they're picking on our pets. Okay, so maybe your dog is getting a bit husky. Perhaps Sparky the Large just needs to get out more, like on a road trip. Pets are always welcome in Motel 6, where you get a clean, comfortable room for the lowest price of any national chain. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you and your pleasantly plump best friend. And a Core Hotel.
All right, here we are. Let's go back to it. Whizzing around on the cycle like a cowboy hanging on for dear life, and underneath the 18-wheeler, is that right?
Yes, Art. Now, as the bike hit the ground, like I said, it started to go counterclockwise, and I'm sitting on top of the bike now, and I'm holding on tight. And as I'm going under the truck, I'm looking up, and I see the trucker is looking out. He's hanging out of his window, watching me go under his truck. And then as I'm continue to turn counterclockwise, now my front fork is facing those tires. Now, this truck was huge. It had 4 tires on one side and 4 tires on the other side. So it was a very large truck. Now, as I'm starting to come closer to the rear wheels, I'm hearing the sound of the tires now. I'm hearing, I'm going, oh God, please let it just be fast. And as I was about, my little front tire of the chopper was about, I would say, an inch. It got an inch close to those rear tires, and I knew it was going to just suck me in and pound on me and blow me up. So I was ready for it, and I'm holding on real tight. And then suddenly, at the last second, it just went wham! It just totally went counterclockwise and shot me out from under that truck, across the left-hand lane and into a ditch. Because on Route 9, I-95, there's this long, ditch in the middle that just goes on. Anyhow, it threw me into this ditch. Now the bike is on top of me, and I hear, in the distance, the truck slowing up. Thank God the guy didn't slow up while I was under there. And I hear, in the distance. And then I hear, and I'm going, oh God, there's gas dropping on my hot engine now. I'm going on. I'm thinking about movies.
My God.
I'm thinking of these movies that they blow up after an accident.
Absolutely.
So now I'm trying to get my leg out from under the bike, Art, and I'm pulling out. Finally, I get away from it, and
You're very good with sound effects. Let me hear the gas hitting the hot thing again. Let me hear that.
Yeah. Oh God! I'll tell you.
Anyway, yeah. Go. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I ran up the embankment there because it was the sump thing. I ran up to the top, and there was the old lady and the old man. They stopped. Their car stopped right where I went in because they saw the whole thing. So and then I saw the truck. He was all the way down the road. He stopped. So I go across the street and I talk to the old lady and man, and they go, "Geez, we saw that whole thing. You were right under that truck." And I said, "I know." I said, "That was so damn scary." I thought I was dead for sure. So then I look over at the truck, and I see the truck driver get out, and I see feet on the other side. Somebody else was in the truck with him driving. And he looks immediately. He gets out of his truck, and he's looking under his truck. So I whistle. I'm going, whistle really loud.
Over here, yeah.
I'm over here. So the guy comes over. I was under that truck. I says, and then I shot out. And so then this police, I was under that truck. I says, and then I shot out. And so then this police officer pulls over, and he's got this big tank hat on, you know, Southern cop, and he goes, license and registration. So
he said that to you or to the trucker?
No, to me.
To you? Yeah.
To me. So the truck driver says, hey, man, give him a break.
All right, we don't have much time here, so...
So anyhow, the only thing that I ended up getting... The only thing... This is how it ended up happening that I didn't get killed. I think. I have highway pegs on my chopper, and those are things that the guys, you know, you put your feet on. Yep. And every once in a while, if you look at the road on I-95... You'll see these expansion slots, you know.
That's right.
And I think what happened was, just at the right time...
One of them caught.
The peg must have caught in the road in the expansion slot, and it just whammed me right out.
I got it, and that's what whipped you out of there. Yeah. Well, right. Miracle, then, is the right word. You're lucky to be alive.
I want to thank those truckers for knowing what they're doing, because if he put his brakes on, I would have been squashed.
Gotcha. All right. Well, they do know what they're doing, and... They're an amazing force out across this country. A lot of them listening to this program on a nightly basis, and I can tell you that for sure, because no matter where I go with my RV, when I'm in the RV, the truckers will recognize me, and of course the program. And I know darn well that if I were out there in the middle of the night, driving out across the country, this is indeed what I would be listening to. West of the Rockies, you are on the air. Hi.
Hi, Art. How you doing tonight? This is Blair in Sedona.
Blair, hi.
Hey, do you think our consciousness could be the controlling factor regarding the alien presence conundrum? You know, i.e. creators and or abductors? You are. I got something I wanted to say about
It's not beyond reason for it to be so, and I certainly have considered it. Consciousness is obviously an incredible force. Could it be, the monster of the id, coming from inside of us? Yes, it could be.
Yeah, when you talk with Mr. Cerrito last week, it always seems the question comes up why they seem to stay in the background, yet abduct us as if they is a unified front of alien intelligences.
Yes.
Well, how about the notion that they represent multiple, sometimes conflicting extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional, probable future self entities, and that some form of what we might call, thank you, Star Trek, prime directive is in operation that precludes this overt mass public contact until we're ready, okay?
Well, the whole concept of prime directive, even though used in Star Trek, and so it's easy, therefore, to laugh it off, is such a universal sort of truth when you think about it, that even though they use it, that doesn't make it any less sort of a universal truth. I think there would be, don't you, a prime directive?
Yeah, it's sort of like we're incubators. We're sort of like potential embryonic gods, and we've been given this great gift of, free will. And if there's true free will and free choice, then if we're evolving, evolving personalities also have that possible choice of becoming self-confusing, self-disrupting, self-destroying.
Sure.
Yeah. So basically, by our own personal consciousness and free will decision-making, then, we draw a certain faction into our own personal and or group consciousness or reality.
It might even be true, sir, that a lot of what we call the paranormal could actually be emanating from ourselves.
Boy, there you go.
It can't be overlooked.
Well, it'll be interesting to hear what Dean Radin has to say about his consciousness experiments. Thanks, Art, for your time.
You're very welcome, and thank you for the call. That's a very thoughtful call, and I've thought about that many times. As you're searching for answers to what otherwise is completely inexplicable, so much of the paranormal, that has to be one of the things that you consider, and that is that the active human brain, our brains, alive and functioning, that one aspect of them that we know very little about accounts for a great deal of what we cannot explain because we don't understand it. You're on the air, Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell on the international line. Where are you, please?
I'm calling from Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada.
Way up in all right, Nova Scotia. Glad to hear from you.
Oh, good to be on the air. I have a comment and a question.
All right.
First of all, the comment is, I think I heard that Angel smoking a cigarette. I'm not sure.
Really?
And my comment is, the question would be to you, is that I was on the internet, or the New Year's Eve prediction show last year, and I was prediction number 35, and I just wondered if it was the Bush-Bin Laden connection coming into the light this year.
What precisely was your prediction?
The prediction was that the Bush family and Bin Laden family connection would be brought into the light, and...
Well, you know what, first of all, it's not that strange that the Bin Laden family and the Bush family might have some connection. The Bin Laden family is very wealthy. They have disowned Osama, and so what?
And that the Bush family knew about 9/11.
No, hogwash.
A monster plan.
Give me a break. Come on, give me a break.
Well,
if the president of the United come on now, if the president of the United States knew that 2 buildings in New York and the Pentagon were going to be destroyed or in part destroyed, you think that he would just sit back and do nothing? Do you honestly believe that?
I believe that paranoia is reality on a finer scale, Art.
Paranoia? Well, let me think about that statement. Paranoia is a finer reality?
Paranoia is reality on a finer scale.
Why?
Well, that's a quote from the movie The King of New York. I thought it made quite a bit of sense.
Well, when you're discussing something like this, just throw in a movie quote. All right. Thank you very much, and lots of rock. Here we go again. Yeah, I'm really annoyed. There are certain groups out there throwing stones at me because I just refuse to swallow the kind of bile that he just served up to me. That the Bush family knew the Bin Laden family, sure, that's possible. The Bin Laden family disowned Osama a long time ago, so that doesn't make it. And then, of course, he makes the leap of illogic that the president then knew that 9/11 was going to occur. Please. First time caller line, you're on the air. Hello.
Yes, hi, Art.
Hi.
There were 3 things real quick I want to... you had just mentioned something about this Shell Oil Company, what this gentleman was saying.
The chairman of Shell.
Yeah. They just started on a science project about this cable. We're on the verge of a new ice age. They said we're right on the brink. And they said it could come in overnight. And if the weather stayed like it is right now, the heat and the moisture, they said that this will take us over the brink. They've checked everything. They've done core samples. They've checked the shell animals. The same thing's happening. The salinization of the water is not going as far as it should and then coming back to us like it's supposed to.
Well, when you hear the chairman of Shell Oil say something like that, and you hear the big insurance companies, Lloyd's and the rest of them, concerned they won't be able to cover things because they're going to get so bad, you better be listening.
Yeah, you should. And another thing, too, we've got some information tonight, some truth about Saddam Hussein, is that he did have weapons of mass destruction. Russia was the one that told him to get them out of there before we got there.
So where are they?
They're in Libya, Syria, and the other countries, Lebanon around there. That's where they're sitting. And anyway, I thought those were so...
Well, if they actually had weapons of mass destruction and they knew we were massing and preparing to attack, then why hide them? Why would you take your best weapon and hide them instead of using them?
I don't know, but this minister, he had on his program tonight, and he was furious. He said, you people have been lying. He said they had them the whole time.
That may well be, but again, it may well be, ma'am, but again, if they had them and you're about to engage in a life and death battle, and from Saddam Hussein and his lieutenant's point of view, certainly they were about to engage in a life and death battle, then why not take out as many of the infidels, in quotes, as you can and use them
It just does not make sense. Wildcard line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Art.
Yes.
Hi, Art. This is Danny out in Reno Valley, California. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
All right, Art, the reason I called, do you remember last week a lady calling in about the fireball over the Los Angeles area?
I do indeed. And then following that, an unexplained fire, which in her mind was attributed to the fireball?
Correct. She said she felt heat on her cheek. And
that's right, yes.
Different things like that.
Yes.
Well, the interesting part about that is the station I listen to out here, our local station is KFI.
Yes.
And the night that she's talking about, it was the day after the fireball over Seattle. And I was listening to the news that evening. I can't remember exactly what time it was. It seemed like around 10 o'clock or something like that. But KFI broke in and literally reported the fireball had just been sighted. There was many call-ins. People, were even saying it could have been a downed airplane.
Sure.
The authorities couldn't find an impact point at that time. And as the news developed, they would give us more news.
Right.
That's the last I heard of it. But KFI actually reported the incident.
Fascinating.
And I haven't heard anything else since, and I can't find anybody else either until I heard that lady when she called you.
All right. Well, that's how stories develop. Maybe they will now look further into it and find out that, in fact, that fire was caused by something that crashed through the atmosphere. Something. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi, Art.
Hello.
Hi. I have a couple of things. Do you remember the show in the 80s, That's Incredible?
Barely.
All right. Well, it was like a Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Right.
I'm from a small town near Houston, in Texas, of course, Dayton, and there was a UFO incident down here that was on national television, and I went to high school and graduated with the guy what happened, he was driving down the highway, and he and his grandma and his mother, they had this UFO land in the middle of the highway, and they had radiation burns from it.
Yes. Now I certainly recall the story.
Yeah, his name is Colby. Anyway, he was a classmate of mine, and I thought you'd find that interesting.
Well, the whole story was interesting, and I recall the radiation burns. Yes, I remember. I remember very well that story, one of so many. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Hello?
Hello.
I have a few things to say.
You do, huh?
Yeah. First of all, I think Saddam Hussein was probably better for Iraq than we are. Because, we're just going in there and stuff, and we have no real motive to be there. I mean,
Well, I don't know about that. We probably don't have the stated motive.
Well, yeah.
Those were the weapons of mass destruction or his involvement in 9/11 or whatever. None of that seems to be panning out.
Yeah. Second of all, I also think that the government is they have a lot of stuff that they're not telling us. And the White Knight, the rocket plane thing?
Yes.
I think that they're doing that. They're releasing that out to, mislead us. I think they're doing everything they can.
Now, wait a minute. What you're referring to, taking off from Edwards in hours now, is a private sector thing by Burt Rutan. Doesn't have anything to do with the government.
Oh, well. But still, though, I think that they're trying to do everything they can to get us off of the real problem, which is Iraq.
Mm-hmm. How old are you?
I'm 13.
13. That's deep thinking for a 13-year-old.
Oh, they...
You're very welcome. Thank you for calling.
You're welcome.
All right, take care. First-time caller line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Bell. I'm calling out of KONA 610 out of Kennewick. Enjoyed your show. Been listening for about 3 or 4 months now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Just had a quick question for you. Just being kind of new to the subject here, I just wondered, I know Stanton Freedman's coming up online here pretty soon, this coming week, and I was wondering if you had any suggestions for someone who's new to the subject as far as UFOs or abduction type theories, who I might study, which materials, which books might be the best to for introductory purposes?
Oh gosh, there's legions of material for you to read. But certainly a good start would be Stanton. He's well educated. He's a nuclear physicist. Wow. Stanton has researched the crash at Roswell extensively, and if you want a good beginning point, I would say Stanton would be the place.
Alrighty.
So you answered your own question.
Alrighty. Well, I look forward to hearing from him. And hey, just want to let you know I enjoy your show. Enjoy listening to the show on the weekends. I work the night shift there, and you're the highlight of the shift there. So.
Thank you. What is it you think that is going on as a newbie to all of this? What do you think?
Well, it's certainly very interesting. I was a longtime critic, and talking to some of my friends who claim that they saw a few things and kind of introduced me to your show, it's kind of changed my thinking just a little bit on the subject there. So it is interesting.
All right. Well, you're in luck in another way as well. Coming up in a moment is a fellow named Dean Radin, and he will introduce you to what may be going on in the middle of your own mind. His book is The Conscious Universe. It's going to be fascinating. Stay right where you are. To access the audio archives of Coast to Coast AM, log on to coasttocoastam.com.
Talk 1110 WBT.
Duty, honor, country. These three words define who we are. Friends and neighbors united for the common good, in service to others, and for the benefit of all. Honor, the deep-rooted faith that selfless dedication to a noble cause is right, just, and good. Country, a solemn vow volunteered to support our nation's people during desperate times. Mercy, in the midst of nature's wrath. Hope, when all seems lost. Duty, honor, country. We're the Army National Guard. Call 1-800-GO-GUARD. That's 1-800-GO-GUARD. The Army National Guard. You can.
Sponsored by the North Carolina National Guard. Aired by the North Carolina Association of Broadcasters and this station.
New hair guarantees you'll regrow thicker, fuller, denser hair, or we will refund your money. Anytime within a 1-year period. Here's what real customers have to say about new hair.
I've been using new hair for about 3 months with some excellent results. Around the second month, I noticed my hair was thicker, had more body, and a vibrant color. This is a great product that I will continually use.
Since taking new hair, I noticed darker and less gray hair. My hair is growing phenomenally. It looks and feels healthier. I'd strongly recommend new hair.
Stop the clock on your hair loss and regrow thicker, fuller, denser hair guaranteed with new hair. Call now. 800-806-0732. 800-806-0732. And receive up to 2 months free with today's order. So call right now. 800-806-0732. 800-806-0732.
WBT Charlotte and 99.3 WBT FM Chester. News Talk 1110 WBT. Charlotte's news, weather, and traffic station.
CBS News, I'm Bill Fitka. Dog. To locate survivors or bodies to determine how many were killed by Hurricane Charlie. Punta Gorda in Florida is where most of the fatalities have been confirmed. 10 of the 13 known victims. Hundreds of mobile homes were damaged there. The entire city is without water and power. Correspondent Aline Sergani in Punta Gorda.
There are search and recovery canines here The same K-9s who were actually working on September 11th at the World Trade Center, they will begin the job of searching.
Hundreds of people are not accounted for in Charlotte County, and thousands are homeless. Charlie's polling card, when it made first landfall, was winds of 145 miles an hour. It was nicknamed by some a Friday the 13th nightmare because it changed direction unpredictably, sending tourists who had sought a vacation into evacuations. One lucky group got back home safe and sound to Chicago.
I don't see anything so amazing and so powerful and strong.
Trees were going down. I mean, people were actually being blown. Little kids, you could see them kind of sliding in the ground.
There was so much destruction. I've never seen destruction like that ever. It was scary.
There was an exodus out. Now relief workers are pouring in. Rick Scott of the Red Cross and a colleague leaving Columbus to do what they can.
We both feel a need to help others who are less fortunate, and definitely when you've been wiped out by the tornado or flood or a hurricane, you're definitely less fortunate.
Hurricane Charlie bolted up the Atlantic seaboard, raking the Carolinas, where the hurricane made a second landfall. Losing power now, but still a rainmaker as it makes its way up the East Coast. Forecaster Stacy Stewart spoke to CBS News 10 minutes ago.
Charlie's moving to the northeast at 35 miles per hour, and it still has sustained winds of 45 miles per hour with gusts to 55 miles per hour, and it's expected to make landfall on the southeastern New England coast later this morning.
In Washington State, new fire evacuations have been ordered near the Fisher Fire. The Chelan County Sheriff's Office telling folks to seek safer ground, according to spokesman Steve Jennison.
We have at least 8 different canyons that are being threatened at this time.
There are about 100 homes in the area threatened by the Fisher Fire. Michael Phelps got his first gold swimming to a world record, 4 minutes and 8 seconds. More from CBS News correspondent Dave Barrett.
Michael Phelps has strength in all 4 parts of the medley, the backstroke, butterfly, freestyle, and breaststroke. He got off to a solid start, and he wins what could be the first of 8 gold medals.
This is a dream come true to me.
He said before the games began that he'd be satisfied with 1 medal. Teammate Eric Vent gets the silver. Dave Barrett, CBS News, Athens.
He may be the most famous drummer in rock and roll. The Rolling Stones drummer Charlie Watts has cancer of the throat. The 63-year-old Watts has been undergoing treatment in London soon after he was diagnosed in June. A spokesman for the Stones expects Watts will make a full recovery and go back to work with the band later this year. This is CBS News.
This year, you're going to quit smoking. Whether you've said it for years or you're trying for the first time, there's a revolutionary new system that's guaranteed to help you succeed or your money back. The smoking solution components have already helped thousands of ex-smokers kick the habit permanently. We guarantee you'll be completely smoke-free and cravings-free in as little as 7 days or your money back. Unlike gums or patches, the smoking solution is a complete system that includes natural herbs to curb your cravings safely without nicotine. We also include the slimming solution to fight weight gain, powerful antioxidants to help heal your lungs and body, and much, much more. Best of all, the smoking solution system works fast. In as little as 1 week, we can help you kick the habit once and for all. Come on, aren't you willing to give yourself 1 week to quit? Whether you're doing it for yourself or for the ones you love, the smoking solution system is the fast, guaranteed answer. In as little as 1 week, you'll kick the habit for good or your money back.
To order is free. Call 800-816-2129. That's 800-816-2129. Call 800-816-2129 now or go to radiodeals.com.
Senior Bush administration officials say the president is planning one of the largest troop realignments in years and will order home tens of thousands of soldiers from around the world, but not from Iraq. Most of the returning troops are now stationed in Europe and Asia. He is expected to announce the shift Monday in a speech to the veterans of foreign wars meeting in Cincinnati. Mr. Bush has refused to offer any timetable to bring home the roughly 140,000 U.S. troops from Iraq. When musician Rick James was laid to rest, 6,000 people filed past his open casket.
That's my man. You know, I love him like he's my uncle.
A great person. I enjoyed his music, and I'm still enjoying it.
The service was in James' hometown of Buffalo, where he was remembered as a choir boy from the wrong side of the tracks who made good. James's cousin, former Ohio Congressman Louis Stokes, eulogized him as a phoenix rising to the pinnacle of the music world. James was to be cremated after the service. Bill Vitka, CBS News.
Hi, I saw your sign in the window. The secret to finding the perfect job, $5.
Come on in.
What's the secret?
$5.
Okay, here.
I'll need to type into the computer.
All right.
That'll be $5 more.
Oh, all right.
Voila.
CharlotteHelpWanted.com.
Quiet. You want everyone to know about it?
Everyone does know about it. That's how I found my great job. But CharlotteHelpWanted.com is no big secret.
Is so. I got it from a guy channeling an ancient spirit named Bob.
What?
Wait. Bob's coming through now. He says to tell you that one click and you can read all the help wanted ads.
I know that.
And that you can post your resume free.
On CharlotteHelpWanted.com, I also know that.
Have you been talking to Bob, too?
There is no Bob.
There is, too. He lived in the ancient days of New Jersey.
I want my money back.
How about I tell you a secret formula for turning belly button lint into gold bullion?
No, thank you.
I got it from Bob.
Bye. It's no secret. CharlotteHelpWanted.com. Long name, amazing results.
Now, all ads on CharlotteHelpWanted.com can be viewed instantly in English and in Spanish. Not just Help Wanted. CharlotteHelpWanted.com.
News Talk 1110 WBT exclusive AccuWeather forecast. Partly to mostly cloudy overnight. A spotty shower, low 63. Sunday patchy fog early, and then clouds will break for us from sun. There could be a shower, high 82. Partly cloudy Sunday night, a low 64. Yeah, look for Monday, a nice day. A mixture of clouds and sunshine with a high temperature of 84 degrees. We're Charlotte's most accurate and dependable forecast. I'm AccuWeather's Dave Bowers on News Talk 1110 WBT.
Max, the sun again. Or to fly to the sun without burning a wing. To lie in a meadow and hear the grass sing grass. In our memories all and
To talk with Art Bell, call the wildcard line at area code 775-727-1295. The first-time caller line is area code 775-727-1222. To talk with Art Bell from east of the Rockies, call toll-free 800-825-5033. From west of the Rockies, call 800-618-8255. International callers may reach Art by calling your in-country Sprint access number, pressing option 5, and dialing toll-free 800-893-0903. From coast to coast and worldwide on the Internet, this is Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell.
Tonight, a heavyweight, Dean Radin. Dean Radin earned a BSEE magna cum laude in electrical engineering from the University of Massachusetts. He also has an MS in electrical engineering and a PhD in psychology, both from the University of Illinois. For 10 years, he conducted research on advanced telecommunication systems at AT&T Bell Labs and GTE Labs. Then, for the majority of the last 20 years, he has investigated psychic phenomena full-time in academic and industrial positions. Dean served as a member of a classified research project investigating psychic phenomena for the U.S. government at SRI International and headed PSI research programs in Silicon Valley for 2 scientific and industrial think tanks. He has been senior scientist at the Institute of Noetic Sciences in 2001. He is also adjunct faculty at Sonoma State University in California. Dean's research has been featured in numerous magazines, and he has appeared on several radio and TV programs. In addition, he's author of the book, The Conscious Universe, which I have in my hand. And I thought, it might make sense to read you the preface of this book. I thought it was really, really good. He'll be here in a moment. The preface says, "Nonsense," barked the man in the pinstripe suit. "There isn't a shred of evidence for psychic phenomena.
The clacking sound of the rails punctuated his blunt dismissal. His companion, a young woman with luminous eyes and an immense halo of hair, was unimpressed. "Harry," she said, glaring at him, "the evidence is staring you in the face." When I boarded the commuter train a few minutes earlier, I was looking forward to an uneventful trip, but as the train began to move, two latecomers rushed in and took seats right next to me. Their argument clearly had been percolating for some time. Harry, it seems, was an advertisement for Brooke Brothers, complete with attaché case and Wall Street Journal tucked under one arm. She was dressed in saffron and carried a well-worn book bag. "In my meditation last night," she said, pouting, "I received a message from Zeron." Harry rolled his eyes and, voice dripping with sarcasm, said, "Would that be the Zeron from the planet Pluto or Zeron from Atlantis?" "Oh, the one from Atlantis, of course. You know the Plutonians aren't telepathic." We communed mentally through his dolphin friends. He said my psychic abilities would improve if I got my aura cleaned. Harry's smirk at life's stupidity had permanently creased his forehead with an angry gash, but this last remark caused a vein to leap forward. Exasperated, he caught my eye, leaned over, and said in a stage whisper, "Shirley's gone off the deep end with all this New Age crap." I uttered a non-committal grunt, not wishing to get sucked into what appeared to be a long-standing disagreement, but I did not have the luxury of remaining neutral, for Shirley overheard the remark and righteously replied, "If you listened to Zeron for once, you wouldn't be such a skeptic. His words are pure truth." "More like pure bull," he grumbled. "There isn't a shred of evidence for ESP telepathy or any of that hokum. Not one shred," she protested. "If you feel it, that's proof enough. You just live in your mind, your head too much." Sensing a concession, Harry bellowed, "Your belief about ESP doesn't mean it's true. It just says that you believe it's true. If science hasn't proved it, then it isn't true. It's just superstitious, mythological, folklore, mumbo-jumbo, mystical crap." I couldn't stand it anymore, so I said, "Excuse me, but I couldn't help but overhear your conversation. Actually, there's quite a bit of scientific evidence for psychic phenomena. They really do exist." Shirley smiled beatifically, pressed her palms together, and said, "Bless you," with a bow. At the same time, Harry's expression snapped into such a stupendous grimace, with one eye squeezed tight and the other twitching like a guppy out of water, that I was a little concerned that his head might explode. I quickly added, "On the other hand, regardless of how persuasive your personal psychic experience may be, science has shown time and time again that personal beliefs are often mistaken." After my little speech, both of my new acquaintances adopted scowls for different reasons. Shirley's face wavered between awe and bewilderment, while Harry narrowed one functioning eye and said suspiciously, "What makes you think you know anything?" I sighed, realizing that I had just made a mistake. From past experience, I knew it would take about 6 hours of discussion about science, history, psychology, and psychics just to reach the starting ground of educated opinion. I wanted to explain to Harry and Shirley that what many people think they know about psychic phenomena ain't necessarily so. I wanted to describe how scientists had essentially proven that PSI exists, using the same well-accepted experimental methods familiar to scientists in many disciplines. I also wanted to explain why hardly anyone knew this yet. But no one likes a lecture. So instead, I wished I just had a book that I could hand to them that would explain all of this for me. This is that book, and that book is called The Conscious Universe. Its author, Dean Radin, in a moment. Hey, investors, would you like to know how to make 100, 200, even 300% profit in your savings and retirement accounts? Do you know which investment experts say could make that happen? Gold. James Turk, well-known economist and gold expert, recently told Barron's magazine that a weak dollar and rising budget deficits could push gold over $1,500. That's 300% higher than where it trades today. And history agrees. Last time interest rates began to rise from these levels, gold rose more than 2,000%. Are you ready to take advantage? If you want to know more, call the experts I trust with my gold investing, Lear Financial, at 1-800-474-4259. Ask for your free gold profit guide and learn how even a small investment into gold today could turn into a huge savings and retirement nest egg. Call 1-800-474-4259 now, and you'll also receive the special audio, The Gold Boom Ahead, a $29 value. The gold guide and the audio tape are free, no obligation. Call 1-800-474-4259. That's 800-474-4259. 800-474-4259.
Hi, Tom Bodette. As more people find their special someone on the internet, Motel6.com is in the matchmaking business too. After all, that's where you'll find Click 6 web bargains, big discounts at Motel 6 that are only available online. It's how eligible travelers find the deal of their dreams, and we won't even lie about our height. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel6.com. I'm an outdoorsy Pisces who likes long road trips and leaving the light on for you, and a core hotel.
I'm a hypocrite. No, I'm not a vegetarian that wears leather shoes. You see, I used to smoke pot, and when I found pot in my kid's room, I confronted him about it. It would have been easier to look the other way and not feel like a hypocrite, but I'm his dad, and he's not allowed to smoke pot, period. It might be hard, but to help your kid with their problem, first you have to get over yours.
Austin, the anti-drug.
Hypocritical? Yeah, that's me.
For more information, visit theantidrug.com or call 1-800-788-2800, sponsored by the ONDCP and the Partnership for a Drug-Free America.
Dean, welcome back to the program.
Thanks very much, Art.
Do you carry now that it's published, do you carry a copy of this book around just in case you get on a train and run into a couple like that now?
I don't, but after listening to you read the preface, I think what I should do is have you read the entire book, and then I'll have an audio version that I can give to people.
You know, I've done a couple of those. They're kind of fun, actually. But that's a great preface, just a great preface. And, you know, here, this program is such a mixture of people. I mean, there are the believers, the devotees, and then there is a very large core group of skeptics as well that listen to this program. I'm not sure why. I guess they want to hear how wild it can get, or they want to be able to chuckle and know what's going on in the other camp. I don't know why they listen, but they are very skeptical, and they are out there listening tonight. So if you were, I'm afraid I've got to put you back into the preface again, and we've got to start sort of at the beginning. If you were going to try to find somebody that a lot of aspects of all of this are real, Dean, and it was the 101 version, how would you do it?
Well, I think after having conversations like this for years with people, including many, many skeptics, I've come to the conclusion that you can't convince anybody of anything, especially if you're starting from a strong position beforehand. And this goes for both believers and skeptics. It's extremely difficult to push somebody's belief away from where it is, provided that it's quite strong to begin with. And just to give you an example, from skeptics who read the preface, they come away thinking that I'm a super egotistical maniac of some type.
because I'm making a claim in the preface that I think I know something. And, of course, from their point of view, which is on the hard right in political terms, they're saying they think that they know what the truth is, and therefore anyone who says anything other than that is basically nuts. And on the other side, if somebody's coming from a strong left position, the New Age position, they will look at what I said and feel confused as to why I'm giving any credence at all to the skeptical side.
Well, in the middle, then, there must be some group of generally open-minded people that you could attempt to impress with what you consider to be facts or things that would convince one that at least some of this certainly is true.
Right. So the middle section is around 60% of the population.
That's quite a few.
Which is fortunate, but that does mean that there's 40%, which we really can't push at all. And so for the 60%, it depends a lot on whether I'm talking to a popular audience or a scientific audience. For the scientists, I typically try to get an hour or so, and I present data, one screen after another in a PowerPoint show that shows results of experiments that have been replicated many times by people for the last 50 years.
And once men of hard science have seen this, what kind of reaction do you get?
Usually what happens is the lecture will end, and then they'll all rush up to the podium and ask questions like, is that for real? Are you telling, like, this is for real? And they get all excited because the implications of this for science in general are astounding. So in a few cases, the scientists will go off and try to replicate some of these effects.
That's what science does.
Well, a very small percentage will do it. And the reason is that, we all have our own agendas, and we're oftentimes paid to research in a given area, and we don't have the luxury of being able to drop everything and try a new experiment. But it does happen, and it happens often enough that we're able to advance the state of the art.
The difficulty, of course, that all of us have is that intertwined with the reality of PSI and the reality, perhaps, of global consciousness, and so much more that we talk about on this program, in the periphery of all this, or even mixed squarely within, are some people who, frankly, are off on fits of fancy or whatever, and they do the whole concept a fair amount of damage.
Absolutely. Now, it is much, we think about any discipline, whether any controversial discipline, that includes things like cold fusion, and the few people who are seriously trying to research UFOs and so on.
Yes.
We're hurt far more by people who make wild claims than we are by people who are making highly skeptical remarks.
Yes.
And the reason is that we get painted by a very broad brush. So if you have somebody who's making wild claims, that brush is going to drip over on us, and then a skeptic will look at us and assume that what I'm saying, for example, or what I've written in my book, is more New Age silliness. And the consequence is that they simply won't pay any attention to it.
Sure.
That's the problem.
Well, I would think it's much like, I'm sure, the government's position must be with respect to UFOs. Whether or not UFOs exist, one thing we know for sure, and that is our government is testing very exotic new aircraft that are frequently mistaken for UFOs.
Mm-hmm.
So having ufologists out there and having UFO reports from the government's point of view must just be a real bonus.
Well, in the UFO business, it probably does actually help. It helps to confuse people as to what may be real and what isn't, because you're right. There are all kinds of interesting and exotic aircraft out there which the government would just rather we didn't know about yet.
So, from a government's point of view, why dissuade some poor soul who thinks he just saw something from Venus?
Exactly. Of course, there is another side to that story. I was once speaking to a friend of mine who works at the CIA, and in a sense is the the real-life Mulder from X-Files, the person who is given the crazy things to track down.
Really?
One of the things that he was looking into, and I have to preface this by saying I don't know very much about the UFO field. That's not my area. But I speak to people who are knowledgeable about this. And so I asked him, what does he think about UFOs, given that he's had the opportunity to investigate. He pretty much dismissed all of it as it's our stuff, basically, with one exception, and that was the exception having to do with cattle mutilation. At that time, I had never even heard about the cattle mutilation business. I assume that your listeners will know about it.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Okay, so he was on a number of quick reaction responses to calls for something is funny happening with the cattle.
Yes.
And, of course, the reason why the CIA and others got involved is because the farmers went to their senators, and the senators went up, and then, the message came from on high, go figure out what's going on here because you're making some cattlemen angry.
Mm-hmm.
So to make a long story short, whatever is happening with some of the cattle mutilations, it looks like it is a real phenomenon. It's not just predators doing their thing.
Many times, Dean, there have been reports of eyewitnesses seeing cattle actually rising to craft, all that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, they're being dumped. And, God, the stories, Linda Moulton Howe covers this in great detail frequently. No one's ever caught.
Right.
Ever.
And the important point here is the people who investigate and get there very quickly do not know what it is. And you can imagine that if it were common knowledge, the people who you would hope would know what's going on, people who can get there quickly and have spy satellites and all methods that can be used to figure it out, and they cannot, that would be somewhat disruptive.
Mm-hmm.
So it's simply easier for the mainstream message to be, well, there's nothing to it, just so that we don't disturb people.
Do you have any thoughts on what might be up with it, any of that, by the way?
Well, my own sense is that we're not dealing with ET in the sense of hardware, or even with extraterrestrial intelligence. Instead, my own bias here is because I tend to take a psychological view of these things,
mm-hmm.
is that the distinction between the subjective and the objective is nowhere near as clean as we usually think. That there's something like an imaginal world. It's the world that's living in between the subjective side, or the world inside your head,
yes,
and the objective, which is the world outside your head. There's a middle world, the imaginal world. That world sometimes actually manifests. And so what it has to do with cattle mutilations, I have absolutely no idea.
But I guess you're suggesting it could be a manifestation of this portion of the mind?
It could be something like a collective mind, or maybe individuals' minds that are manifesting in a physical way, but only quasi-physical. See, and the reason I say this is based on 50 years of laboratory experiments, which show that there is a relationship between what goes on inside your head and what goes on outside in a direct way.
What are some of the greatest examples of any physical manifestation of the mind that you can name?
Well, rather than saying specific experiment, I think it's actually more persuasive to talk about classes of experiments.
Okay.
So one of the classic experiments we have are mental intention being directed at random events. An electronic circuit creating streams of random bits.
Man controlling machine.
But directly, through the mind. And the hypothesis is actually very simple. It assumes that mind and matter are complementary in the sense that they're like two sides of the same coin. They're different than each other, but they're linked in a very solid way that makes them go together. So under that model, that hypothesis, if the mind becomes very quiet through meditation or through high attention or something that makes the mind quiet, then the hypothesis says, well, maybe the matter side will also become quiet. So we think about this from like an internal body state. If you sit down to meditate and your mind is all agitated before you settle down, your body actually tends to be agitated as well.
Right.
After a while, your mind begins to calm down and your body becomes quiet. So by analogy, if mind and matter are linked, then if you have somebody sit down and meditate and they become extremely quiet both inside their mind and their body, and perhaps in the vicinity, you'll find that physical systems that are not connected to the person will also become quiet. The way we test that is with randomness, because it's very easy to detect when randomness is no longer acting quite as random.
It's also the feather touch, isn't it? In other words, I would think that increasingly difficult would be moving or affecting large or heavier objects. But when you're talking about randomness, you're talking about a computer program that's running, is spitting out as something eternally random. So it's a feather touch experiment in a way, isn't it?
Yes, although the source of the randomness is not a computer algorithm. It's not a computer software.
All right, well, we'll talk about what it is in a moment. We're at the bottom of the hour. But nevertheless, whatever the source of the generation is, nevertheless, a feather touch, something ever so slightly manipulating that which was random and all of a sudden begins spitting out the understandable.
And 99.3 WBT FM Chester. News Talk 1110 WBT. Charlotte's news, weather, and traffic station.
CNN Radio News Update. I'm Rory Sushak. President Bush hits Florida Sunday following the pounding from former Hurricane Charlie.
Many lives have been affected by this hurricane, and I know you join me in sending our prayers.
Tropical storm Charlie is now trekking northeast along the mid-Atlantic state coastlines. West of the Cape Verde Island in the Atlantic is Hurricane Danielle. She's not expected to threaten any land, but the same can't be said for Tropical Storm Earl. He is expected to cross over eastern Caribbean islands on Sunday. Warnings are in place. The gold medal for the Olympic 400-meter individual medley relay goes to American swimmer Michael Phelps. His teammate takes the silver. In the Iraqi city of Najaf, ceasefire talks have crumbled. Military offensives are back in effect. Meantime, President Bush is poised to call home 70,000 troops from posts in Europe and Asia. This is CNN Radio News.
Somewhere out there's a place where the mountains tower so high you can get in your car and drive all the way up to the clouds. It's a place where the woods are so enchanted you can still find ferry crossings on the forest floor. A place where you can trek over 900 miles of hiking trails, some of them originally forged by buffalo herds. Where you can listen to the soft trickle or the awe-inspiring roar of over 300 buffalo. Or just sit on a moss-covered lawn and stare up in wonder at trees born a century before the American Revolution. And the best part of this somewhere out there is that it's right here in the mountains of the state you call home. When you live in North Carolina, the endless wonders of the high country are just a small part of your inheritance. Isn't it time you claimed it? Call
Call 1-800-VISIT-NC or go to visitnc.com and discover the state you're in.
Sponsored by the North Carolina Division of Travel and Tourism and the North Carolina Association of Broadcasters in cooperation with this station.
This year, you are going to quit smoking. Whether you've said it for years or you're trying for the very first time, there's a revolutionary new system that's guaranteed to help you succeed or your money back. SmokeRx has a 95% success rate, so we guarantee that you'll be completely smoke-free and cravings-free in as little as 1 week. Unlike gums or patches, SmokeRx is a complete system that includes natural herbs to curb your cravings safely without nicotine. Best of all, SmokeRx starts to work immediately. Come on, aren't you willing to give yourself a switch? We're so confident that SmokeRx will work for you that we're giving away a free month supply with all of today's orders, whether you're doing it for yourself or for the ones you love. SmokeRx is a fast, guaranteed answer. In as little as 1 week, you'll kick the habit for good or your money back. Call now to receive a free month supply with your order. To order risk-free, call 1-800-799-3898. That's 1-800-799-3898. Call 1-800-799-3898 now.
Frank, take your feet off my dash.
Sure thing, Jug.
And stop calling me that.
You got it, Tessie. What's up?
You are fired.
Hey, everyone, it's the weekly Let's Fire Frank event.
This time it's for real, Frank.
Listen, Dor, for years you've been running newspaper ads trying to replace me, and it ain't going to happen.
Au contraire, thanks to CharlotteHelpWanted.com.
You've tried national and local job sites before.
Yes, but nobody drives employees to a website like CharlotteHelpWanted.com.
Oh, I have goosebumps.
I posted your job in less than 5 minutes. I had unlimited words to describe the position. I was able to peruse resumes any time of the day or night.
So I'm fired for the 127th time.
I started getting responses almost immediately and found the nicest, most capable local person to fill your position.
What?
So goodbye, Frank.
Well, you better get ready for lots of weeping and gnashing of teeth, because I'm very beloved.
Everyone, I fired Frank. It's time for real.
You're all disloyal.
CharlotteHelpWanted.com. Long name, amazing results.
Now, all ads on CharlotteHelpWanted.com can be viewed instantly in English and in Spanish. Not just Help Wanted. CharlotteHelpWanted.com.
Hi, I'm Merlin Olsen. And over the years, I've worn a lot of different hats. Football player, actor, broadcaster, corporate speaker. If you work for yourself, you know what I mean. You're the CEO, the sales force, the bookkeeper, and the janitor. Well, I found a way for self-employed people like us to do it all and save money at the same time. It's the National Association for the Self-Employed. I became a member, and the NASC helped me gain access to affordable endorsed health insurance. They also offer access to tax and business advice, credit card processing, and many other business benefits. They can help you, too. Call 1-800-838-7645. The National Association for the Self-Employed. Something to help everyone, even if everyone is just you.
Association Group Health Insurance is underwritten by the Mega Life and Health Insurance Company. Not available in all states. Call us today at 1-800-838-7645. That's 1-800-838-7645.
Oh, honey. No, it's okay. The boat's a little beat up, but we're okay. Thanks to the Coast Guard.
I am the port in the storm.
The flight is contained.
Roger that.
I am the line in the sand.
Oh, I got you. Hang on. Okay, take us up. I am the rescuer in the dark. Here we go.
Looks like we've got about 80 kilos here, Captain.
That's 80 kilos off the street.
I am the enforcer of the seas.
I'm in container 38. Everything is secure.
Good work, Garcia.
I'm the defender of the homeland. In the United States Coast Guard, you are the first line of defense against threats to our American way of life. To become one of us, call toll-free 1-877-NOW-USCG or visit gocoastguard.com.
We are the spirit of freedom.
We are the United States Coast Guard. The United States Coast Guard and Coast Guard Reserve. The seal of freedom.
Sponsored by the U.S. Coast Guard in cooperation with the North Carolina Association of Broadcasters and this station.
New hair guarantees you'll regrow thicker, fuller, denser hair, or we will refund your money. And
anytime within a 1-year period. Here's what real customers have to say about new hair.
I've been using new hair for about 3 months with some excellent results. Around the second month, I noticed my hair was thicker, had more body, and a vibrant color. This is a great product that I will continually use.
Since taking new hair, I noticed darker and less gray hair. My hair is growing phenomenally. It looks and feels healthier. I'd strongly recommend new hair.
Stop the clock on your hair loss and regrow thicker, fuller, denser hair guaranteed with new hair. Call now. 800-806-0732. 800-806-0732. And receive up to 2 months free with today's order. So call right now. 800-806-0732. 800-806-0732. News Talk 1110 WBT and 99.3 WBT FM.
That's 1-800-447-9323.
So your kid's smoking pot, and now you're afraid to say something because they might push you away. Maybe this will help you out.
Oh, I hate you!
You went through my room?
It's just a little pot. You're groaning me? It's just a little pot.
Get used to it. When your kid's trying pot, you have to say something, no matter how they might react. Because to help them with their problem, first you have to get over yours. Action, the anti-drug.
For more information, visit theantidrug.com or call 1-800-788-2800.
Paid for by Office of National Drug Control Policy.
And now for a traffic update, we go to Kelly Clark. Kelly, how's it looking out there?
Well, if you got to get anywhere, I hope you have lots of time. All northbound lanes to the Taylor interchange are backed up. Westbound lanes are to standstill, and the off-ramp near the Martin building remains closed, causing major headaches.
Not good.
But I do have good news.
Oh, what's that, Kelly?
I just saved a bunch of money on my car insurance by switching to Geico.
See what you could save. Call 1-800-947-AUTO. Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% on car insurance.
Once again, Dean Radin. Dean, you were saying the generator of the randomness in this case we're talking about was not a computer.
That's right.
But rather what?
The source is typically electronic noise through something like Zener diode, which creates something called electron tunneling, which is a quantum effect.
Mm-hmm.
Or we have a new type of random generator, which is based on the decision that a photon makes when it hits a half-silvered mirror.
Uh-huh.
And that also is a quantum process. So ultimately, the random events that we're working with are quantum physical processes, which are, as far as we can tell, completely random. So the point of using these is that you're right. It's like a feather touch. It would take close to no energy at all in order to influence the effect. And it also is convenient because these things are very easy to monitor with a computer, so you can have completely automated experiments. So
Dean, excuse me. Do you think, Dean, that the feather touch experiments that you're doing are necessary because of the nature of the power of the mind to influence such events, being inherently weak at this point? And do you think that we are at its very beginning of development? In other words, do you think that that power could be increased, perhaps, and focused to produce more than a feather touch?
That's an excellent question. What a good question.
Mm-hmm.
A complete answer would take around 6 hours. But the short answer, I think, is that we're dealing with something which is very similar to talent, like sports talent.
Sure.
You consider how many people make it into the Olympics out of the pool of possible people. And we're probably dealing with something like 1,000th of a % of the population have those physical qualities and probably the mental qualities to be able to do Olympic-level sports. So somewhere at that level, there are people who have mental capabilities that are way beyond other people. And in fact, if you look in history at people who are able to repeatedly do what we call macroscopic movements, moving things that, you can see moving, you don't need statistics in order to see it.
Yeah.
It's the fingers on one hand are the number of people who have reliable witnesses saying that, yes, something seemed to have occurred.
But would you affirm, can you affirm that, in fact, those people you can count on one hand really do exist?
I think they do, and I'm much more convinced of that now than I was even 5 years ago. And the reason is that, and this goes, by the way, across the board for any kind of psychic claim, that if somebody makes a strong claim, like bending metal or moving an object,
yes,
I think I'm like most people in that basically I don't have any reason to believe it unless not only do I see it happen, but even better, if I can do it myself.
Yes.
Because otherwise I don't have any basis to believe it. So I certainly have had friends that have said, when it comes to metal bending in particular, that they've bent a metal bar that you can't bend physically, or that they've bent a spoon or something like that. And I said, oh yeah, I'm thinking in the back of my mind that they're probably dissociated and they don't know their own strength and all of the usual explanations.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, it really is interesting that you would say that short of being able to do it yourself, no amount of observation of anybody else doing it would be satisfactory. We live in a world of illusion being almost the norm, don't we?
Well, but for good reason. I mean, as I say in the book over and over again, it's extremely easy to be fooled. And so anybody who starts looking into psychic phenomena, if they're not also reasonably well trained in close-up magic and illusion techniques, to say nothing of ordinary psychological problems, then you're going to fool yourself fairly quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So I've spent a fair amount of time when I used to live in Las Vegas. I would hang out in the magic shops. And, for example, a couple of years ago, somebody came to me claiming that they could bend metal. And to prepare for this person coming to the lab, I went to the local magic shop and I said, can you show me a trick or something that I can buy to bend a spoon?
Right.
And then he said, well, I have 8 different methods. Which trick would you like to get? So I bought all of them.
Yes.
And this is one of the reasons why magicians in particular are so skeptical, because they know that it's very easy to be fooled. So I've been very skeptical. In fact, I'm skeptical across the board.
Well, I'm curious. When this person strolled into your lab and did his spoon bending, were you able to bust him on the spot?
Not on the spot, no.
Really?
No, we had 2 video cameras on him. At the time, it looked real. And we had 2 cameras from 2 different angles because, and in fact, the camera people were told, one of you to do a close-up on the hand and the spoon, and the other one get a wider shot.
Uh-huh.
Because oftentimes there's a distraction that goes on.
Sure.
And it's changed. So we were able to tell both from the wide shot and the close-up that what we were seeing was an illusion. And it was incredibly good. We could see it when we went back frame by frame and see how the trick was done.
But it was a trick?
It was a trick. Yes. It was a trick. But it was a trick.
But a trick.
Yeah.
Around the world, including in Russia, there have been reports of fascinating experiments. People doing all kinds of things, bending laser beams and light and all the rest of it. Anything to all of that?
Well, again, 5 years ago, I would have said my probability meter was quite low. Today, my probability meter is a little bit high. And it's because of a personal experience. And I wouldn't expect anybody to accept it, but I'm just saying this for me, my meter has changed a little bit because something happened which I know cannot occur through illusion or force.
All right. This I would be very much interested in hearing about.
Okay. So, I went to one of these PK metal bending parties that Jack Helk often gives.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I went there is because I wanted to sit within a foot or two of somebody who said that they did something which I know cannot be done by force, which is to take a large soup spoon and bend the bowl of the spoon. To bend the bowl over. Not to bend the neck, which is fairly easy, but to bend the bowl.
Okay.
I've measured how much force it takes to do that, and I know that no ordinary person without some kind of leverage can do that with their hands.
Right.
So I found a lady who said that she had done it before, so I sat down about a foot and a half from her and watched very closely because I wanted to see this happen. At the same time, I was holding a spoon and I was trying to mimic what she was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a big, heavy, old-fashioned type soup spoon. So I'm watching her, nothing's happening, and then somebody points out to me, look what you did, meaning look what I did. And I had somehow managed to bend the bowl of the spoon about halfway over.
Oh, my goodness.
And then, yes, I'm looking at it thinking to myself, oh, my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
And the people around me are getting all excited, and they said, push it all the way over. I figured, well, okay, why not? Before I did that, I looked at my fingers because I wanted to see whether or not I was applying force.
Yes.
And I had not been applying force. I was touching it, but I was touching it just gently. So with one finger taking the edge of the spoon, I simply pressed it all the way over and basically pulled the bowl of the spoon over.
Huh.
And then, I'm sort of looking at it dumbfounded, and because I know I did it. And what came to mind was that people would talk about the spoon feeling spongy or like taffy, and that is exactly what it felt like. It felt like clay or like a piece of taffy momentarily. And then it hardened up immediately, and it couldn't budge, and to this day it hasn't budged.
Huh. Well, you can only imagine that your mind, if you did it, your mind somehow modified the atomic structure of that spoon at a certain point, enabling it to be taffy-like. I mean, there really is no...
So after this event, I immediately go back to the literature, and there was a lot done on this in the 1970s. And the conclusion that was reached back then was it is a real phenomenon. It doesn't happen all the time. When it happens, it leaves a mark. The thing is bent, so you can study it. And what it looks like is though there's extreme heat applied to the grain boundary inside the spoon. And, of course, if you're trying to bend it in a certain way, then if the grains all melt along a certain line, then it'll be very easy to bend it in that direction.
Yes, sure.
So it can still be a very microscopic effect. But nevertheless, it causes a macroscopic result.
Do you recall anything unusual about your thinking processes during that time?
Not really. I was trying to pay close attention to the woman who never ended up on the phone at all. So I think in general I was not paying attention to what I was doing.
Although you were paying attention to the intended process.
Yes, I was trying to mimic something I wished to occur. And so, being a scientist, I immediately wanted to go out and replicate this.
Oh, yes.
Because, you're like holding an impossible object. And I tried, and I wasn't able to do it, and I'm going back on the plane, going home, and I'm trying to bend a spoon, and suddenly I get a moment of horror, which it made me understand something about what's going on here. The horror was, I'm trying to bend a spoon in my hand. If I'm successful, does that mean that the wing of the plane is going to fall off? I don't know anything about what just happened.
Yes.
And as a result, I suddenly realized something about the fear that is associated with these large-scale effects, even though ultimately it might be a microscopic effect.
Thank you very much. for bolstering what I already felt. You know how I feel about this.
Right.
So now we should back up for the sake of the audience a little bit. Let's start out with the Global Consciousness Project itself. Not everybody in this audience even understands what that is. Could you explain it?
Okay. And by the way, this is a nice segue because in the Global Consciousness Project we use electronic random number generators. We're trying to change the distribution of random numbers coming out of these devices. We detect the effects through statistics. So we're dealing with...
By the way, are you still using computers, Dean? Or are computers still being used?
Oh, yeah. We now have 70 sites in basically every country around the world.
Oh.
Most of the U.S. states. And what we're doing is we're running these random generators 24 hours a day, continually. Every 5 minutes, they package up samples of random bits that they have, and they send them off to a server at Princeton.
Right.
And anybody can go look at the website if they want to. It gives a full list of the results, and not only that, you can download any of the data. But I would warn you that if you download the data now, it's a lot of data, 100 megabytes per day, because there's so much data being generated. And the point of all this is that we make a hypothesis that mind and matter are related. And this essentially is taking what we used to do in the laboratory with one person trying to mentally influence a random generator and expanding it up to the size of the world. So we take advantage of large-scale events that tend to attract a lot of people's attention around the world.
Like 9/11.
Like 9/11.
All right, so all these eggs, I think Princeton called them eggs.
Egg means electrodiagram. This was a takeoff on the idea of an EEG, electroencephalogram.
Right.
So instead of taking the brain wave of a brain, we're taking the brain wave of Gaia's mind. The world's mind.
The world's mind.
So that's where the electrodiagram idea came from.
All right, so these eggs are scattered all over the U.S., all over the world, and they report back then to Princeton. And anything, I guess the idea is, anytime you begin getting large reports from many eggs that non-randomness has begun to occur, it registers on some kind of graph somewhere. Is that...
That's the hypothesis. So the way that we test this, the way that we have been testing it from the beginning when we started in 1998, is there are two basic types of events that can occur. It's either something planned, like New Year's, or something not planned, like 9/11. So if it's planned, we make a prediction in advance. We're going to look at the data at this time for this length of time. If it's an unexpected event, then we use the same 4-hour period, but we, of course, have to look at it retrospectively. And we start from whenever the event occurred, and we go out 4 hours later. Actually, we start 10 minutes before it occurs and goes out later. So, to date, we've done 174 events. And these are massive events like 9/11, they're meditations, worldwide meditations, the Madrid bombings, and so on. Lots and lots of things.
Actually, a lot has happened since we last spoke, the Iraq War.
That's right. And in fact, just to give you a sense of it, 9/11 was event number 80, and we're now on event 174.
Wow.
So we're downstream quite a bit. One of the things that we've done is we wanted to see, well, what is the overall evidence at this point that we're getting non-random behavior? And the odds, as of a few days ago, was somewhere between 10 million to 100 million to 1. And the reason why there are two different odds here is because we did attract the attention of some outside physicists because we published an article in Foundations of Physics Letters, which is a mainstream physics journal. And we've had people then go back into the raw data and replicate, reanalyze what we have been doing independently to make sure that we hadn't made a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And they end up with a slightly different result. Like they have 10 million to 1, whereas our result might be 100 million to 1. Well, there's a difference there, but there's still far from chance.
Yes, far, far from chance. Well, I recall that when I first began to learn of the existence of this project, of course, I went straight to the people at Princeton, and frankly, they didn't want much at all to do with me. In fact, they didn't want much at all to do with any kind of publicity. They were scared to death of publicity, is what I recall.
Well, for good reason. I mean, the analogy here is that we start talking about the Hubble telescope, and you say, tonight if you look out overhead, you can see the Hubble telescope. Let's everyone shine your flashlight and light it up.
Uh-huh.
And, of course, that defeats the purpose of the thing itself. What we're dealing with is a measuring instrument which is in the background measuring mass consciousness. And so we don't want people to direct their thoughts at it because it'll screw up the monitoring process.
Screw up the whole experiment, really?
Yeah.
Potentially, sure.
So that's why the experiment is designed as a passive monitor and not as something to be aimed at.
Aimed at is right. And that's all it takes to aim at it is to think about it, right?
For a large number of people to be coherent in their attention. So, I mean, unfortunately, right now, a lot of people are being coherent in the sense that they're all paying attention to this topic.
Right.
So we are adding noise to the system.
As a matter of fact, on a prior show, we actually made an attempt. I believe we had sort of a quasi-official report going on and got back some information that indicated that we'd had some effect, right?
The possibility of an effect.
Yes. Uh-huh. And, of course, it just went, I exaggerate, but it went right off the charts at the 9/11 event. And there's some things about it that bear discussion. For example, the fact that it seemed to begin to go off the charts, my words, prior to the actual event itself. Is that right?
That is right. 3 to 4 hours before the events unfolded, there began to be a very striking change in the random numbers.
Yeah.
Now, which leads us, we probably won't make it because of the time right now, but when we come back...
questions of time, actually, right?
Yes. When we come back, I'll tell you something which is far more amazing.
All right.
About 9/11.
Stay right there. My guest is Dean Radin, and to some degree we are violating the sanctity of the experiment going on at Princeton by even talking about this. But it is indeed very momentous, and I feel like you all should know about it. And it's all wrapped around, some of those early experiments that I did that I don't mess with anymore for, I think, very good cause. From the high desert in the middle of the night, I'm Art Bell. Don't go anywhere.
Interested in the trip to the moon?
The secret to finding the perfect job, $5.
Come on in.
What's the secret?
$5.
Okay, here.
I'll need to type into the computer.
All right.
That'll be $5 more.
Oh, all right.
Voila.
SolidHealthWanted.com.
Quiet. You want everyone to know about it?
Everyone does know about it. That's how I found my great job. But SolidHealthWanted.com is no big secret.
It's so. I got it from a guy channeling an ancient spirit named Bob.
What?
Wait. Bob's coming through now. He says to tell you that one click and you can read all the help wanted ads.
I know that.
And that you can post your resume free.
On SolidHealthWanted.com, I also know that.
Have you been talking to Bob, too?
There is no Bob.
There is, too. He lived in the ancient days of New Jersey.
I want my money back.
How about I tell you a secret formula for turning belly button into gold bullion?
No, thank you.
I got it from Bob.
Bye.
It's no secret. CharlotteHelpWanted.com. Long name, amazing results.
Now, all ads on CharlotteHelpWanted.com can be viewed instantly in English and in Spanish. Not just Help Wanted. CharlotteHelpWanted.com.
Good morning. This is Ray Vincent of American Equity Mortgage. If you're hearing our message at this time, it's probably because you're at work, driving around, or can't sleep. If you can't sleep, I hope it's not because of money problems, but if it is a money problem, American Equity Mortgage can help. You're not alone. The average household has a credit card debt of $6,000 or more and paying a fortune in interest. You see, if you're a homeowner, you can use the equity in your home to consolidate all your bills and have only one payment. Think about that, just one new low monthly payment. Your equity can be used to pay off your auto loans, credit cards, and get a new low fixed rate on your mortgage. You will be saving hundreds of dollars each month. American Equity Mortgage specializes in homeowners with less than perfect credit. We have helped thousands of people just like you get back on track. You can call our office right now, and a loan specialist will call you first thing in the morning. That's American Equity Mortgage. Call now, 556-1800. That's 704-556-1800.
WBT Charlotte and 99.3 WBT FM Chester. News Talk 1110 WBT. Charlotte's news, weather, and traffic station.
CBS News, I'm Bill Vitka.
I'm so glad to be alive.
A close brush with Hurricane Charlie visiting Florida with deadly wind and rain. At least 13 people confirmed dead. Most of the victims in Punta Gorda, off Florida's Gulf Coast. It is home to many retirees and where Charlie McGibbon and his wife lived till the hurricane destroyed everything.
This house is done. It's absolutely done.
They lived there for 57 years. McGibbon says they're happy to be alive, but the rest is an emotional wound.
As soon as we understand the full measure of our loss, it's too overwhelming right now.
Charlie made landfall with 145-mile-an-hour winds in Florida. Punta Gorda, along with Port Charlotte and Fort Myers, have no running water. 80% of the buildings in the county left damaged. Mobile homes now broken metal skeletons. As Charlie crossed the state, it pulled the plug on more than 1 million people. No power. Governor Jeb Bush says there is billions of dollars in damage, and it will be a high-profile visit by his brothers to the election-critical state on Sunday. CBS News correspondent Mark Noller.
In all, the president will spend about 2.5 hours on the ground in Florida. He'll inspect hurricane damage from the air and on the ground, and he'll be briefed on the disaster relief effort. The White House says everything will be done to keep the presidential visit from interfering with recovery operations.
John Kerry, his Democratic rival, said he offers full support to the president and governor as people rebuild. After charging across Florida, Charlie entered across open water in the Atlantic before hitting land for the second time, the largely evacuated Grand Strand resort region of South Carolina. It was weaker, but spawned tornadoes in Jacksonville, North Carolina. George DeHout could hear it.
We heard a roar coming and saw a tornado coming across. It went like maybe 15 or 20 feet above the peaks of the roof, and then just the vinyl just stood up straight up in the air, and the single stood straight up in the air.
Hard rain has followed Charlie up the eastern seaboard into the northeast. Ovarian cancer is almost always fatal and fast. Now there's hope for early detection. CBS News correspondent Barry Bagnato explains.
Ovarian cancer is especially sinister because it often remains hidden. 3/4 of all cases are diagnosed at later stages when chances of survival drop dramatically. Needless to say,
well, the detection of ovarian cancer early is very important.
Johns Hopkins researcher Daniel Chan and colleagues have developed a first-of-its-kind blood test that tracks 3 proteins that apparently provide a signature for the disease. The test must survive further studies before it can become widely available. Barry Bagnato, CBS News, Washington.
Michael Phelps took a big step forward in his quest to match Mark Spitz's 7 gold medals by winning his first at the Athens Olympics. The teenage American swimming to a world record, 4 minutes, 8 seconds in the 400-meter individual medley. American teammate Eric Vent finished second for a double celebration on what was otherwise a mediocre day for the United States. China leading the medals race with 4 gold. This is CBS News.
Hi, Tom Bodette. As if bugging us about our weight wasn't bad enough, now they're picking on our pets. Okay, so maybe your dog is getting a bit husky. Perhaps Sparky the Large just needs to get out more, like on a road trip. Pets are always welcome in Motel 6, where you get a clean, comfortable room for the lowest price of any national chain. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you and your pleasantly plump best friend. And Accor Hotel.
Your dog eats your new sofa. Pet satisfaction rating 3%. Your hairdresser doesn't know burnt auburn from burnt toast. Hair color satisfaction rating 5%. After years of marriage, your husband still leaves the seat up. Spouse satisfaction rating -2%. Your car insurance company saves you hundreds of dollars and handles your claim quickly and fairly. Car insurance satisfaction rating 97%. Oh, you must have Geico.
Geico's customer satisfaction stands at 97%. How would you rate your car insurance company? Geico. 1-800-947-AUTO.
High water in the California desert, thunderstorms setting off flash floods in and around Victorville. A flash flood warning was issued for north and central San Bernardino County. Jam band fans have been converging on Coventry, Vermont to see the group Fish jamming Interstate 91 in an echo of Woodstock. So many fans and so much rain that hundreds of cars are stuck in mud and state police turning back traffic.
Get back in your cars and keep going, please. And if you don't, expect your car's going to be towed.
A lot of towing. As many as 2,500 vehicles have been abandoned. No happy ending for the promoter.
We feel very, very badly about this, but there was no good decision. There was no decision that was going to benefit everybody.
The massively popular Fish is disbanding, bidding farewell at a Camp Out Festival. Fans were walking to the stage, some a 12-mile high. Bill Vitka, CBS.
Condition not improving with your current regime? Phytogel is a 100% natural formulation used to ease the discomfort of different types of dermatitis in animals. In the Journal of the American Holistic Veterinary Association, Phytogel was studied as a remedy for mange, hot spots, acroleak, and a host of other skin disorders. Animals studied were dogs, cats, horses, rabbits, and hamsters. The results, Phytogel was 86.5% effective treating skin ailments with no side effects. Phytogel is an herbal formulation which has been used in Europe and Asia for years. The main ingredients, neem, cedar, beech, and eucalyptus oils, have antimicrobial properties. Many holistic veterinarians are using these other jars, shampoos, and eardrops. If your pet has been suffering and you're looking for a product that is considered to be as effective as cortisone, order Phytogel. Phytogel, natural relief for your pet. Call 888-881-8767 to order Phytogel. All orders will be shipped same day. Call 888-881-8767. That's 888-881-8767.
The News Talk 1110 WBT exclusive AccuWeather forecast. Partly to mostly cloudy overnight. A spotty shower to 63. Sunday fancy fog early, then clouds will break for us some sun. There could be a shower, high 82. Partly cloudy Sunday night, a low 64. The outlook for Monday, a nice day. A mixture of clouds and sunshine with a high temperature of 84 degrees. We're Charlotte's most accurate and dependable forecast. I'm AccuWeather's Dave Bowers on News Talk 1110 WBT.
Completely disappeared. While the blue small walls have marked, but the hills and going feel easy too. These days, sometimes I feel my life just like a river running through the year of time.
To talk with Art Bell, call the Wildcard line at area code 775-727-1225. The first-time caller line is area code 775-727-1226. To talk with Art Bell from east of the Rockies, call toll-free at 800-825-5033. From west of the Rockies, call 800-618-8255. International callers. From coast to coast and worldwide on the internet, this is Coast to Coast AM with us.
Back when I was probably, to some degree, recklessly experimenting with this newfound power, if that's what you want to call it, I remember calling it the law of unintended consequences, but Dean Radin said it very elegantly. Being on an airplane, remember that? Trying to spoon bend, and then thinking about the aircraft wings. You know, if the plane had gone down, there simply would have been an intensive FAA investigation, which probably would have ended with a sentence like structural failure or something, but that would have been deemed at that. So that's a much more elegant way of explaining the whole thing, the law of unintended consequences. That certainly would have been one.
Would you like to feel 10 years younger in a matter of 10 weeks? Well, there's proof now the effects of aging can be slowed down, even reversed, with human growth hormone, HGH. For quite a while, you've heard me talk about the incredible age-reversing benefits of HGH. Thousands of articles. Higher HGH levels can help you look and feel younger. That's why I take Ultimate HGH, a natural formula to help boost my body's own production of HGH. So if your goal is to help improve energy, stamina, lose unwanted fat, diminish wrinkles, enhance memory, immune function, and vision, then Ultimate HGH is for you, too. Why let Mother Nature get the best of you? Call today and order Ultimate HGH, and when you order 2 bottles of Ultimate HGH, you get the third absolutely free. About $33 a month in savings, a tremendous savings off the typical $100 a month for comparable products. Plus, with your order, you're going to receive a free book on HGH, a $20 value absolutely free. So, all my good friends at Great American Pop, order Ultimate HGH today. The number is 1-800-557-4627. That's 1-800-557-4627. 1-800-557-4627.
Let's go forward, shall we? When your teenager is now in their 20s, so strong they can't move, which is how they spent college and why they didn't finish and get the job they deserved or the friends. Wish you could do it over again? You can. If you know your child is smoking pot and drinking, do something. Visit theantidrug.com or call 1-800-788-2800. If life doesn't rewind. Option, the Anti-Drug. Sponsored by the ONDCP and the Partnership for Drug-Free America.
Hi, Tom Bodette. As if bugging us about our weight wasn't bad enough, now they're picking on our pets. Okay, so maybe your dog is getting a bit husky. Sparky the Large just needs to get out more, like on a road trip. Pets are always welcome in Motel 6, where you get a clean, comfortable room for the lowest price of any national chain. I'm Tom Bodette from Motel 6. We'll leave the light on for you and your pleasantly plump best friend. Anacor Hotel.
I believe we were just about to get something even more fantastic. Dean?
Yes. In August of 2000, I launched a website called GotSide.com, in which we have a suite of side games, little games that people can take to see if they might be psychic.
All right, again, that's GotSide. That's GOTPSI, right?
It's a takeoff on the Got Milk campaign, GotSide.
GotPSI.
This is hosted by the Boundary Institute, which I co-founded in 2000.
Just a simple little game.
A simple little game. And that game has been running since August 2000. To date, we have 39 million trials by about 158,000 people around the world. And we still get 20,000 to 30,000 trials a day.
What does this little game play like? I mean, what do we...
Well, there are six different games, and the one game I'll talk about now is the simplest possible game, the kind of game that was created by J.B. Ryan back in the 1930s. You're presented with the backs of 5 cards on a screen, and you're to select the one that you think the computer will then randomly select. So it's a precognition test.
Right.
So one run on this test will be 25 cards, 25 trials. Each time you try to select the one that the computer will randomly select. And so we provide a hall of fame, and we provide feedback, and you can see that people are involved in competitions and so on.
Yes, but your motive is not to just let them have fun guessing about stuff. You obviously have a motive here. And how many people got psi?
Well, that's a slightly different question. In fact, we are looking for talent.
Oh, I'm sure you are. I'm sure that's the exact reason for this, isn't it? So how many people got PSI?
Well, we think that the previous estimates were something like 0.1% of the population. And for this kind of game, it's more difficult. This is not the way that psi typically manifests in the real world.
Right.
So it's a much lower percentage, but there are some people who appear to have some talent. But there's another reason for doing this, and that is that the task as seen on the computer is a very simple task, but there are hidden things going on behind the scenes that we're also testing, which obviously I can't talk about because then obviously people will be thinking about that. So let me just say that each of the tasks in this .psi file is a valid test, but there are other things happening which allow us to test.
There's more than meets the eye.
Yes, there always is. So now here's the link back to 9/11.
Yes.
One of the things that, since we have thousands of trials per day by hundreds of people around the world, we can do something very simple, which is take a daily performance measure. How well did people perform as a group every day?
Interesting question, yes.
And so we end up with a graph, and now it's been going for about 1,300 days, starting in August of 2000, going through 9/11 and up to today. And so I was looking at this data for a completely different reason, and 2 weeks ago, I happened to analyze it in a way that I hadn't looked at it before. And I saw a whopping anomaly. And I didn't know at the time when I looked at it, when is that? When in date, what the date is it?
Gotcha.
So I went back and looked at it, and I was shocked to find that this big drop in the curve occurs 14 days before 9/11, goes up to 9/11, and immediately goes right back up.
You're talking about the percentage of good hits you're getting just tanked? Is that what you're saying?
2 weeks before 9/11. And I have a picture of this on the Noetics website.
Over what period of time are we judging this? This little slice that you're talking about. What's the totality of the period of time you've examined?
It drops dramatically. 16 days. I mean, normally with the kind of curve we're talking about...
No. What I'm asking here is the entire period of observation. How long has this been going on now? Have you ever seen anything like it before? I'm trying to get a sense.
So it's gone 1,300 days. Since August 2000, no, there's no other time of such a dramatic drop. And in fact, there's a way to statistically test how often would you see something like this by chance. And we've applied that test to this, and the odds are 5,000 to 1 of seeing this sort of drop in this 3.5-year data.
All right.
So it's a pretty dramatic effect. It's visually very obvious. And as I said, if you go to the ION's website, the Institute of Noetic Sciences website. And we have a link there that'll go to a page where you can see this thing.
And in what manner is it demonstrated? Like a graph?
There's a graph.
There's a graph, okay.
There's a graph, and then there's a second graph which shows the odds against chance of the first graph. Because unless you're used to looking at statistics, you may not see that it's really quite remarkable.
All right. So we have this drastic drop in and around 9/11. What do you suppose that might mean?
Well, my speculation is that, and by the way, around 9/11, many people after the fact were reporting that they had bad feelings. They had premonitions, they didn't feel well that day, all those kinds of things.
Yes.
What this suggests to me is that for about 2 weeks before 9/11, that a lot of people were beginning to psychically get impressions of something bad coming up. And this probably unconsciously.
Yes.
And when we get unconscious bad feelings, the first thing that most normal people do is repress it. Because who wants to think about bad news all the time?
That's right, yes.
So in the process of repressing those psychic premonitions, when you do a psi task, you will also tend to suppress your ability to do the task.
Gotcha.
And what it will end up doing then is what we in the business called psi missing. In other words, you do know what the right answer is, but you will avoid it. You will actively avoid it. That's part of the repression. And by avoiding it, you will end up getting a dramatic drop in performance. And what that curve says to me is that as I said, this is not a minor drop. It's a really massive drop, and it stayed that way for 2 weeks. It suggests that there's something like a mass mind premonition of something bad about to occur, and it was repressed for about 2 weeks. So I looked back in the data and tried to see if there was an event that we know now retrospectively. Did something happen at the end of August? Like was a decision made or something happened that put things into action?
Mm-hmm.
And so as we just learned recently from the 9/11 Commission that it looks like somewhere near the end of August that a go decision was made. Somebody said, okay, we're going to go do it.
Right.
And I mean, this is all high speculation, of course, but I'm wondering whether some aspect of many people somehow got that. And they were sensing that something bad was coming up.
Mm.
So one of the implications of this is in the Global Consciousness Project, we saw, in effect, that a couple of hours before the events unfolded. That's sort of interesting, but a couple hours may not be enough time for anybody to do anything about it. Now, with this, we're using human beings, in a sense, not as random number generators, but as detectors of something.
Right.
And given that we see an effect that's 2 weeks in advance, it may be that this is a much more effective way of acting as an early alert system.
It may be.
So the next question is, can we tell where something is about to unfold? And so that, I don't know the answer to that yet. I'm working on it now.
Do you think that the geographic diversity of these eggs, for example, would help in the geographic, would there be a larger, well, maybe I've got a better way of asking it. If you look back at the data prior to 9/11 that did spike, do you find that in the northeast part of the country, in geographic proximity to the area where it actually happened, New York City, for example, you got higher intensity deviations from the norm?
Yes.
That was a yes?
Yes.
You have looked at that?
Yes.
So there might be a geographic way to pin down where something is going to happen?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
We probably need more eggs in order to get a better topological map. But we did do a We first look at hemispheres and then continents and then, east and west coasts and so on.
Right.
And the strongest effect occurred in the northeast of the United States. That's for the Global Consciousness Project.
Boy, did I ask the right question.
Yeah. Well, that's the obvious question to go, because just knowing that something's about to occur is interesting, but knowing where is much more interesting.
Yes.
So I haven't done the same sort of analysis yet for our card test. Because if it turns out that there also there's a bigger effect where people are, then that becomes extremely important. Because then it actually might act as an early warning system.
Huh. Well, we're a long way from being able to call up, the governor of Georgia and telling him to watch out for what's going to happen in Atlanta here in a couple of days or a week or whatever. But this certainly is a lot of progress, isn't it?
Well, it actually is very unexpected. Both the Global Consciousness Project premonition, if that's what it is, and this card test, these are both unexpected results. So I always try to pay close attention to an effect that was not predicted beforehand. Because if we only get things that we predict beforehand, maybe we're just looking at something like a self-fulfilling prophecy. But if we take advantage of these serendipitous discoveries, that's really by grabbing something by the tail and you got something.
Yes, well, it seems to me you do have something by the tail, and maybe this is a little humorous question, and maybe not. And maybe you shouldn't answer it. But have you yet detected any super people? I mean, people who have played your little game, and both with what is the obvious and perhaps the not so obvious that you can't tell us about. Is there any super people yet?
No. No super people.
No super people.
We thought we had a super person, but then we figured out that they were using a method of cheating, which we hadn't thought about beforehand.
I see.
And once we locked that down, the presumably super person turned out not to be so super after all.
Is the government now beginning to, I don't know if you could even tell me if they did, but are they beginning to show interest in what you're doing?
I would say that people are paying attention, but not officially.
If a super person did appear, do you have the ability to know that person's IP number, track them down, and they should expect, a knock on the door?
We are tracking things like IP number, but whether that would lead us to an individual or not is only in circumstances could we find the person. But a lot of people register for the test. We know we have names, we have emails, and so on. And in fact, we've already done a talent test. And we're about to launch the second phase of the talent test.
What would happen if you found, I don't know, the Einstein of PSI? I mean, if you stumbled across the Einstein of PSI, have you all talked about what would ensue?
We would jump for joy.
Well, yes,
but the thing is,
if you finish jumping.
The thing is that by the way, PSI only means pounds per square inch.
Well,
yeah, the word is psi. It's just simply a letter of the Greek alphabet,
right.
Meaning roughly psyche, having to do with the mind. So.
Yeah. Well, after you jumped up and down and you were all happy that you found this person, what would be in store for that person?
If they were really good and they were not interested in participating, we would never find them. Because they'd know where we are and they would just go be somewhere else. And I think actually that the very small percentage of extremely talented people out there can easily avoid any detection. Because they have that ability.
Do you blame them?
No, not at all. Not at all. I think actually when we're lucky and we end up with someone who's very talented and who wants to work in a laboratory, that is an exceptionally unusual.
Pretty rare. Most people are going to go running.
I think actually they're very deft They don't actually have to run anywhere. They use the mental aikido, like a Jedi master, and they just disappear.
Well, I would think, you've got to put yourself in such a person's shoes. And if you do that, I think very quickly, you'd probably not volunteer to go be a lab rat because of the consequences. If you're for real, then, I don't know, you're a lab rat, and I don't know who you could trust not to cut you open ultimately.
Well, I don't think we would learn anything if we actually tried to dissect people, but I know what you mean. On the other hand, there are some people who, like in the early days at SRI, during the government work, Pat Price was a former police commissioner. He was exceptionally well talented, and the reason why he volunteered is because he was patriotic. He wanted to use his skill for some good. And of course, the program at the time was classified, and so it was very unlikely that anybody would find out for a long time. So I think something like that might appeal to some people who are skilled and would be interested in using their skills to help keep us all safe.
Safe, yes. Conway in Deer Park, Texas, writes, this is very interesting, very interesting. If your assumption is correct, then we're done for. There are millions of Muslims praying at least 3 times a day, just as hard for the destruction of the United States. Due to this mass melding of minds, we have no defense. Well, I don't know whether that part is true or not, but there are at least a very large number of people who would wish us ill and would pray for that. Intensely concentrate and pray for something bad to happen to us.
Well, we've looked in the Global Consciousness Project to see where the large effects occur. Since we have 174 events of different types.
Yes.
We can see, what's bigger, a natural disaster, an act of terrorism, a day of meditation, and that sort of thing. By far the biggest effect are celebrations.
Really?
Yeah. Celebrations, meditations, turning of the new year. That's where most of the stuff happens.
Positive stuff.
Positive stuff. Which is a big relief. We didn't know this when we first started this experiment. We didn't have enough trials. But now we're beginning to see that most of the action occurs on positive coherence in people.
Isn't that interesting?
That doesn't mean that we don't see effects on terrorist acts, because we do.
Right.
But they're just not anywhere near as big as the beneficial thoughts. Which is a kind of a sigh of relief. Again, it was surprising. We didn't know what we were going to get beforehand, but that's what the data is pointing to. But the person who wrote the email is correct. That I do think actually that if you have essentially in psychic space competing wishes,
yes,
that they tend to clash, and it creates anxiety. And it creates nervousness. So,
at the very least.
Hold
on, Dean. Dean Radin is my guest, and we're talking about the conscious universe. Indeed we are. That's the name of his book.
And 99.3 WBT FM Chester. News Talk 1110 WBT. Charlotte's news, weather, and traffic station.
CNN Radio News Update. I'm Rover Suchet. The
cleanup and recovery from Hurricane Charlie took like months, perhaps years.
We're still serving the families of disasters that several years ago, because as long as there's needs that we can meet, we'll be here.
That's Peter Tehan of the Red Cross in Orlando. Over a dozen dead in Florida. Millions without power. Families are piddling out in trouble along the Mid-Atlantic coast. Tropical storm Earl could slam into eastern Caribbean islands hours from now. Forecasters say at the time of impact, Earl could be a hurricane. Report of 1,300 delegates attending the national conference in Iraq, that's in Baghdad, the event being billed as the first experiment in the post-Saddam Hussein democracy. Ceasefire talks in Najaf are over. Military offensives have resumed. On a lighter note, American Olympian Michael Phelps takes the gold for the 400-meter individual medley swim. His U.S. teammate takes the silver. This is CNN Radio News.
Frank, take your feet off my back. Stop calling me that.
Use that, Sassy. What's up?
You are fired.
Hey, everyone, it's the week we Let's Fire Frank event.
This time it's for real, Frank.
Listen, Dor, for years you've been running newspaper ads trying to replace me, and it ain't going to happen.
Au contraire, thanks to charlotteheadquarters.com.
You've tried national and local job sites before.
Yes, but nobody drives employees to a website like charlottehelpwanted.com.
Oh, I have goosebumps.
I posted your job in less than 5 minutes. I had unlimited words to describe the position. I was able to peruse resumes any time of the day or night.
So I'm fired for the 127th time.
I started getting responses almost immediately and found the nicest, most capable local person to fill your position.
What?
Don't feel bad, Frank.
Well, you better get ready for lots of weeping and gnashing of teeth, because I'm very beloved.
Everyone, I fired Frank. This time for real.
We're all disloyal.
CharlotteHelpWanted.com. Long name, amazing results.
Now, all ads on CharlotteHelpWanted.com can be viewed instantly in English and in Spanish. Not just Help Wanted. CharlotteHelpWanted.com. Today, there are 17 million diabetics, and an equal number are pre-diabetic people in the United States. We seem to have ignored the common sense of sound nutrition and exercise. More of us are obese and inactive. Diabetes is on the rise due to reach epidemic proportions by 2030. Many of us will suffer the potentially life-threatening effects of diabetes, and the possible side effects of prescription medications are a concern. Diabet, a natural alternative, may work better and be better for you. Diabet is a patented, clinically tested, 100% natural herbal formulation to help control and regulate blood sugar naturally. Based on holistic remedies, many diabetics have experienced lower blood sugar levels in as few as 3 days. It works so well, Diabet is the only patented product of its kind. Call 1-800-563-9964. 9964. Now get 20% off yours for 2 or more bottles. 1-800-563-9964. Diabet, a product of Turner Laboratories, New Jersey.
I know, it's okay. The boat's a little beat up, but we're okay, thanks to the Coast Guard.
I am the port in the storm.
The bridge is contained.
Roger that.
Okay, take us up. I am the rescuer in the dark.
Looks like we've got about 80 kilos here, Captain.
Got 80 kilos off the street.
I am the enforcer of the seas.
I'm in container 38. Everything is secure.
I'm the defender of the homeland. In the United States Coast Guard, you are the first line of defense against threats to our American way of life. Call toll-free 1-877 now USCG or visit gocoastguard.com. We are the spirit of freedom. We are the United States Coast Guard. The United States Coast Guard, the Coast Guard Reserve. It's here.
Collaboration with the North Carolina Association of Broadcasters on this session.
New hair guarantees you'll regrow thicker, fuller, denser hair, or we will refund your money anytime within a 1-year period. Here's what real customers have to say about new hair.
I've been using new hair for about 3 months with some excellent results. Around the second month, I noticed my hair was thicker, had more body, and a vibrant color. This is a great product that I will continually use.
Since taking new hair, I noticed darker and less gray hair. My hair is growing phenomenally. It looks and feels healthier. I strongly recommend new hair.
stop the clock on your hair loss and regrow thicker, fuller, denser hair guaranteed with new hair. Call now. 800-806-0732. 800-806-0732. And receive up to 2 months free with today's order. So call right now. 800-806-0732. 800-806-0732.
News Talk 1110 WBT. 727-1295. The first time caller line. Area code 775-727-1222. To talk with Artel from east of the Rockies, call toll free at 800-825-5433. For East of Rockies, 800-825-5255. International callers may redial now. From coast to coast and worldwide on the internet, this is Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell. The problem with this kind of thing, and I have one absolutely unambiguous, absolutely clear case of precognition. It couldn't have been chance, it couldn't have been random, it couldn't have been anything but the real thing. It was the real thing. Having said that, it's never happened again. It only ever happened one time. Try as I might, I can't bring it back. Well, I tell you right now, when it happened, it was the real McCoy. No question about it. When you can't be there, the VersaCorder tape recorder sure can. 109.95 with a special offer right now. Free telephone patch cord at $10 value with free shipping. Sequin's VersaCorder is the tape recorder designed for people who listen to radio often enough to know when they're going to miss their favorite show. It records about anything from radio to telephone conversations, records at regular and quarter speed, records up to 4 hours on one side of a regular 120-minute cassette tape. You can set it to record Coast to Coast AM while you're asleep or away. Record meetings and interviews, run it on batteries. Sequin's VersaCorder works with any radio that has a headphone jack. Mention Coast to Coast AM when you call, and Sequin will include a telephone patch cord, a $10 value, free. Give them a call Monday at 1-800-522-8863. That number again to order your VersaCorder or for a free Sequin Company catalog, 800-522-8863. And on the web at ccradio.com, the Sequin Company discovers something new today. Amazing thematic wonder. Never mind. My daughter, I'm not sure. Something's wrong. But I find out the word. No. I just gave up on some money on car insurance. I was listening to Geico.
See how much you could save. Visit Geico.com. Geico, 15 minutes online could save you 15% on car insurance.
Let's go forward, shall we? The teenager is now in their 20s. So stone they can't move, which is how they spent college and why they didn't finish and get the job they deserved or the friends. Wish you could do it over again? Yeah, you can. If you know your child is smoking pot and drinking, do something. Visit theantidraug.com or call 1-800-800-777. Action, the anti-drug.
Paid for by Office of National Drug Control Policy.
Without boring Dean and the audience by repetitively telling my pathetic little but interesting tale, Dean, when it happened, when this precognitive experience happened, I was so shocked I actually fell to my knees. I was kind of dizzy when I realized I had just experienced a real serious precognitive event, and I
got up off my knees and after a while and responded to the event in progress. But, you know, it just early on has never been anything like it before. It was seen. It's happened about time, and so I don't know what science is going to do with something like this. The bodies themselves seem to be... I don't know how else to put it for a lot of people. Now, I suppose there may be a few out there, and I know you're looking for them, that just have it or can do it on command.
I think that evolution has pushed us in the direction of making it difficult to make these things occur, and which is one of the reasons why they're so rare. And the reasoning goes like this. Let's say in some primordial state, in fact, we know this is true from quantum theory, the world is fully interconnected. We know that that's true.
Yes.
Well, if human experience can feel that interconnectedness, then it seems likely that some part of us is aware of what's going on elsewhere and also elsewhen. Unfortunately, from the point of view of survival of an organism, that's a real bad thing. Because if I'm wandering around in the forest and I'm paying attention to the tiger that's not in front of me, but the 4 million tigers that are scattered all around the planet, the likelihood of me continuing to live is quite low, because the tiger in front of me is going to jump on me. So I can see that the organism has evolved in such a way as to pay very tight attention to what is close to me, both in space and in time. That's the only way to survive. What that means is that we've evolved over millions of years to become creatures that are not psychic. And in fact, we're really good at not being psychic. So if this hypothesis were true, then you would say, well, if we really do have connection, we can connect to this interconnected world out there, it's not going to happen in the ordinary waking state, because that's the state that evolution has pushed. It might happen in a state where we're not an ordinary state, like dreaming, or a drug-induced state, or some other very high emotional state, something of that sort. And in fact, when you look at where the spontaneous psychic events occur, they're very, very rarely occurring in the ordinary waking state.
Since you mentioned it, I have to ask about this. You mentioned that perhaps even a drug-induced state.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any ongoing experimentation that you're aware of, Dean, involving induced drug states of one sort or another?
Yes. They're not happening in the United States because it's not legal here. But they are happening elsewhere.
They are, huh?
In Brazil, in Amsterdam, where the laws are different. Drugs like ayahuasca are being used, and drugs like psilocybin.
Yes.
And they do produce better results in laboratory tests.
Oh, really?
And, but we don't need to go as far as hallucinogenic drugs. Just dream state experiments do better, typically, than waking state. So, what all of the research suggests is that the last thing that you want to do for a psychic experiment is ordinary state conscious report.
Right.
You want to use unconscious measurements like physiological changes. You want to use experiments where you don't tell people that it's actually a psychic experiment, it's something else, or they're dreaming, or they're in some kind of unusual state.
I'm curious, Dean, what would the presumption be if, for example, the Consciousness Project evolved to the point, just for the sake of argument here, that not only could you pinpoint the geographic location of an event, but you could perhaps even predict some of the details of the event. I'm assuming a refinement that might be 20 years away from where we are right now. But just for the sake of this discussion and making it really interesting, let's say we could look at group consciousness and really define exactly what was going to occur, who might be involved, how they were going to do it. We're talking now about an act of terrorism, let's say. And we had all of these details. Would you presume that we would be able to change an event that was going to happen, that it would be changeable? Do you make the assumption about events in the world that they're going to unfold in a certain way and man can't step between them?
Well, this is the reason why philosophers don't like precognition. Because it raises the possibility of causal paradoxes.
It sure does.
And so my solution to this problem is there's two things. Either the future is not determined, it's simply probable.
Yes.
In which case we have the metaphor of a river which carries the future. And the river has a certain amount of inertia, and the currents will go in a certain direction, and yet there's always eddy currents around the edge. If the eddy currents change a little bit, it will actually divert the course of the current of the river. So that future is kind of determined in the sense that there's an enormous inertia going in a certain direction, but it can be changed. And also, from our viewpoint right now, it does not yet exist. It's only a potential.
So you would operate under the assumption that you could change what might occur?
Well, that's only one possibility.
Yes.
The other possibility is that the future, in fact, is determined, but precognition is not all that good, in which case we only get a vague sense of what the future is going to be. In both cases, it will look as though we're dealing with probable futures instead of absolute futures. Either precognition isn't very good, in which case you might get a really good vision, but it's not as good as you think it is, or the future really is not determined yet, and you're looking at one, perhaps, of multiple possible worlds. My own bias here, of course, is I think, like many people, I prefer to think that we have free will.
Yes.
And so we might get a really good precognition of where we're headed, but we don't have to end up there. Because the alternative makes us feel like robots. You know, everything is determined. You can just go out and do anything, and it won't matter. So resolving that question is a very important question.
Well, the reason I'm asking this, and now I guess I'm forced into it in a way, and I won't tell the whole story. I'll try and make it very short. But here I was, I think I told you before, watching TV in my living room, the evening news, in an apartment in Santa Barbara. We had a rolling glass thing that looked out to where I parked my car, which was right in front of the apartment. And these waves came rolling over me in the middle of the newscast, watching Dan Rather or whatever. And somebody's going to hit your car. Somebody's going to hit your car. It rolled over me, just like ocean waves. I couldn't stop. So I said, this is stupid. Went over, opened the curtain. Everything was fine. Went back, watched the news. It started all over again, just like that. Boom, ocean waves coming over. Someone's going to hit your car. So I went back over to the window. I looked out the window. Everything was fine, but a guy was walking down the sidewalk. And he got into the car in front of mine, started his engine, and put it in reverse and slammed into my car. That's when I fell to my knees. I mean, it just... But then I got my senses back enough to yell at him. He throws my road. Hey, I've got your license number. He said, okay, I'm stopping, and we took care of business, But I wonder... Dean, could I have yelled at that guy who was going down the sidewalk if it ever happened again like that, and say, hey, buddy, drive carefully, or something? I don't know.
See, your precognition just wasn't complete. What you got was something's going to happen to your car, but not urgent. A guy is coming along and is going to back into your car.
That's right.
Because if you have the additional information, maybe you probably have it. If you hadn't, since you actually did not have enough information, then there is no causal paradox. All you knew is that something bad was about to occur, but you didn't have enough detail.
That's right. But I mean, there was no question about it. It rolled over me and forced me to go over and look. That's how strong it was. And so, yes, I wonder if I'd said something.
Yeah, we don't really know what the answer is, but we're working towards figuring it out. It's an important question.
Wouldn't it be horrible if we refined the ability to begin to see these events and then couldn't stop them?
That would be perplexing. Yes, and probably somewhat disturbing.
Very disturbing. And so back to all the radical Muslims praying for the destruction of the United States. And even though the positives register harder, you've got people out there praying really hard with a very strong belief system, one they're willing and have shown they will die for.
Right. Well, fortunately, what we don't see so far is that wishes literally come true. What we see is that focused attention will create order in physical systems. That's all that we see. And what that means is, in terms of physiological changes, in terms of perhaps large-scale erratic systems, or not erratic, but large-scale systems that are like on a knife edge, which can include things like the power grid, that it may affect them in some way, but not necessarily in a bad way.
Or the weather.
Yeah.
Now, one of those reckless little experiments I played with about 3 or 4 times and had eerie, hair-raising success with was predicting rain, and that is trying to cause rain by mass thought in areas where there was no forecast for rain, and it was desperately needed. And we did it. We absolutely did it. To hear, like an hour after you conduct an experiment, that cloud vapor began to form, Dean, and that rain began to fall in an area where it just, not in a million billion years, should have begun to fall, that a low-pressure system suddenly developed, and boom, you've got rain. That totally freaked me out when we did those experiments, Dean, and I never, at that time, even thought about unintended consequences.
Right.
But the weather would be a system like the ones you're describing, wouldn't it?
Yes. Yes, and unintended consequences can be very, very serious. That's why, we occasionally, I will do an experiment that will freak me out too, and immediately have to wonder about what are the consequences of this. And I actually think that one of the reasons why this field has been studied in a scientific way for over a century, and it is not mainstream by any stretch of the imagination. It's been relegated to the far fringe for a long time.
Yes.
My sense is that the world, that society reacts to what we're talking about, including the experiments which we publish, in the same way that the body's immune system reacts to a foreign antibody. That as soon as the thing comes out, the anomaly, the thing that freaks you out, or a publication, the whole system gears up in such a way as to get rid of it. It suppresses it, and we're talking about literal suppression in the sense that it's virtually impossible to do this sort of work in academia, and also in more subtle ways, in ways where the collective mind says, you know what, we don't really want information about precognition out there, so we're going to suppress the ability to get it, even in the laboratory. And that's in a sense what I think we're seeing in the 9/11 anomaly Santana Website contest at the Gatsai site.
Right.
There's a massive back reaction that says, hey, we don't want to be psychic because it's too scary. And I think that's one of the reasons why the field at large has been pushed into the fringe.
Well, you mentioned yourself, people don't like negative information, scary, creepy, bad information. They don't want it.
But they also don't want...
The brain protects itself against that, right?
Right, but they also don't want ideas that challenge are deeply held beliefs.
That too.
And so they go hand in hand. So you have a lot of people who are invested in theories about the way that the world is and also about our own capabilities. And something comes along saying, well, you know, maybe what you thought isn't all there is. Maybe humans have some other capacity. And we're not talking about religious beliefs. We're talking about empirical, demonstrable facts. And there can be a big reaction against it, which tends to suppress those abilities.
Where does prayer, you say forget the religion, where does prayer fit into this? And it really does, doesn't it?
Well, I would recast prayer as a form of intention.
Sure.
So, in fact, one of the directions that we're doing at the Institute of Noetic Sciences is addressing the so what question. You know, people have psychic experiences. They show effects in the laboratory sometimes. Well, so what? Well, one answer is that a lot of people pray for health in particular, and typically praying for somebody else's health. So to give an example, one of the studies we're doing, we call it the love study, and we're looking at the effects of compassionate intention on another person's health.
Right.
Which is like prayer, but we call it compassionate intention.
Right.
The people involved are couples, one of whom has cancer and is in treatment for cancer. The other one is the partner who doesn't have cancer but would like to support them in some way.
Yes.
So they go through a 3-month training program to train them in how to provide compassionate intention. Because one of the problems with cancer is not only that it's a disease we don't know how to fix, but that the partner of the person with cancer oftentimes feels that they can't do anything. And they want to do something, but what can they do? So they feel helpless, which is bad for the relationship. So by training them with a compassionate intention means we give them something to do. But after the 3-month training, we go to the lab and we check to see whether the partner's compassionate intention in fact can be detected in the patient's body.
Okay, so are you giving them a sugar pill or not?
No, we're simply looking at whether or not intention in the partner can be detected as a physiological change in the patient at a distance.
Yes, and
the answer is yes. It does have a demonstrable change.
How do you measure that, Dean?
Well, in the setup that we're currently using, we have a very heavily shielded steel room where we put the patient.
Right.
So we're sure that they're isolated from the rest of the world. They sit down for 30 minutes and simply relax. There's a closed-circuit TV camera watching them. And the other room is their partner. The partner in front of them has a TV monitor, and at random schedules, the face of the patient will pop up in front of the partner.
Mm-hmm.
That is the signal for the partner to use their intention to do their compassionate intention connection.
Right.
With the patient.
A very good point. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Joseph Meyer. Hello.
Oh, hello, is that me?
That's you.
Oh, hi, all right, hi, Joseph, so glad to talk with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was wondering, do you think there's any chance of a stock market crash?
Well, I think the market here, quite frankly, is very overvalued, and I think if you take a look at any historic valuation that you would put to this market, I think where we are now, we're probably locked in to a trading range somewhere between 10,000 on the low end and probably the upper limits of the range 10,750 to 10,800. But I think if the market were to break 10,000 on a closing basis, you really don't have good support in this market till about 7,500 in the Dow. But longer term, again, people have a short memory. Going back to 1980, and you probably remember this, 1 ounce of gold bought the Dow. The Dow was 850, and 1 ounce of gold was 850. And I believe before this bear market runs its course, and I think this is a secular bear market, and I think it is a super cycle bear market, and I don't think we make the bottom in this market till 2014, 2015. And again, I strongly believe that 1 ounce of gold will buy the Dow, and I believe we'll see 3,000 an ounce gold and a 3,000 Dow.
Good Lord. And you think that could happen by...
Well, I think once we get past the election, Art, and I think, quite frankly, the Fed stops pumping money into the economy, we've had more liquidity come into this market than ever before. Again, going back, as I'm sure you recall, Nixon closed the gold window in 1971 when the French were trying to convert dollars into gold when we were running the printing presses to try to pay for Vietnam. So I think we're getting to the point where the Fed just cannot keep running the printing presses because eventually we're going to see hyperinflation.
And all of this could manifest over what period of time?
Well, I think once we get past the election, no matter who would be in the White House, I think we're looking at these corporations, as I said earlier, having difficulty turning a profit. I think the real problems, if we start to see worldwide interest rates go up, I think this bond market and stock market could be setting up for a nasty fall.
West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Joseph Meyer. Hello.
What, West of the Rockies?
That's you, all right.
Okay, we're all going to hell in a handbasket, I think.
Sounds that way.
It's just too much information for me. I'm so skeptical. I don't know. I when your comment about the truth, I just say where there's smoke, there's fire. I mean, I called I'm concerned about how. I just don't even know how to begin to buy gold or silver.
Oh. Well, that's a good question, actually, in itself. If you're going to, for example, buy gold, Joseph, would it make sense to actually buy gold coins, to buy gold bullion, or buy gold stocks?
I think it would be a combination of all of those, and I think, quite frankly, it would be prudent to have 10% of a portfolio in the precious metals. I think it would be equally prudent to have a minimum of 1 year's living expenses in a savings account. I know that's probably impossible for a lot of people, but we very well could be looking at 12 to 24 months of some pretty difficult times.
Yes. All right. Here's somebody in L.A. who says, you know, he, meaning you, you're crazy. I just refinanced the mortgage on my 5-bedroom $1 million house here in L.A. at 4.625% on $160,000 balance. My payment is $1,269 on a 15-year term. My daughter, on the other hand, rents a tiny 2-bedroom house with a crooked floor and no screens for $2,000 a month.
Right.
So you were talking about selling homes and going out and renting. This person is saying, well, the rental market isn't so hot here either, or maybe it's worse.
Well, he's absolutely right. We have not seen rental prices pull back, and these landlords are still getting very high rents from these prospective tenants. But if I'm right on the economy, and the economy continues to weaken, we're going to see these landlords having trouble collecting the rent that they're currently asking, because people are just going to not be able to have that disposable income to pay the rent. Now, getting back to this gentleman with this home in California, I realize that this is the strongest market in the country. I realize he has significant equity in the home, but I think you've got to prepare and you've got to think of the day when these homes stop appreciating. And when they start to go down, I think because they're so inflated, they could fall an awful lot.
There's an awful lot of people who want to know when that plateau is likely to be. Want to put your neck out and forecast that at all?
Well, I think as overheated as housing is, and people have said to me, you know, these prices are not that high, and I've said to them, well, I'll tell you, we may not be seeing the top, but this is sure as hell not the bottom.
Joseph, what do you say? And this is going to be a hard one for you. You and I both agreed a little earlier that what keeps everything afloat is confidence. Confidence by people in foreign countries who buy our debt, confidence by the American consumer. Confidence all the way around is the key word. So when Joseph Meyer goes on the air in front of millions and undermines, albeit with what I believe to be the truth, but undermines confidence, it could be a self-fulfilling prophecy. There are those who would say that, Joseph. Just as when a president marches out and says the underlying economy is sound, that tends, or they hope it to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So how do you address that?
Well, I think you're absolutely right in your analysis. I think people have confidence, and the confidence is that they can continue to borrow. We're seeing people continuing to take equity out of a home, continuing to refinance. Until we see rates move up significantly, and I would say, Art, that's probably going to be when we get these mortgages up another 0.75% or 1%. I think if we see that, this real estate market is going to be setting itself up for a nasty fall, but we're not there yet.
Well, again, what would you watch for to know when we're about to get there?
Well, I think one of the things you would watch for is for continued weakness in the U.S. dollar, and I think you would look at the other currencies around the world and see relative to the dollar if they're strengthening. As you know, the strongest currencies have been the Canadian dollar, the New Zealand dollar, the Australian dollar.
Yes.
So I think that would certainly give you a tip-off along with watching what happens in the metals. We've had a pretty nasty setback in the metals in the last couple of weeks, but I still believe we're in a bull market in the precious metals, and this correction and/or pullback is an excellent opportunity if you don't own the metals to step up and start buying.